The story unfolds in the martial art world where mortals and immortals have different planes where they live and prosper. On the mortals plane, Wu Kingdom is just one of the many kingdoms ruled by mortals. They practice martial arts with the help of their mortal techniques to reach greater heights. In this world where strength rules supreme, martial arts are the key. Wu Yu is one of the princes of the Wu Kingdom. After his emperor's father's death, he was to become the crown prince that will lead the nation in the future. But as everyone was coveting the kingdom's throne, just before the day of crowning, Wu Yu was caught up in a conspiracy. He was drugged and put in the same bed with an emperor's consort. Wu Yu woke up, and as he regained his senses, he got confused seeing one of his father's consort on the same bed with him. As he was compiling his thoughts, he was interrupted when water was splashed on him by the guards of the harem master consort Yuan Taxi. They sneered at him as Yuan Tai arrogantly asked Wu Yu to come to his senses and accept his crime. Only then Wu Yu realized that he is not dreaming and he was not present in his own room, but rather in the emperor's bedchamber. In addition to that, he also notices several people inside the room, including ministers and princes, that were forbidden to enter the bedchambers. As he was trying to understand the situation, Consort Yuan Taxi ordered the guards to take the adulterous couple away. Later, the guard threw them on the ground in the Taxi palace to receive their judgment. As he was thrown on the floor, everyone present in the palace started accusing and criticizing him. Yuan Taxi ordered the palace guards to drag Consort Ming out to execute her. She tried to defend herself and kept on swearing to be innocent, but to no avail. Everyone present stated that Wu Yu should be guilty and punished for this crime, and that he is not worthy to become a crown prince and lead the kingdom. Yuan Tai took this chance and stated Wu Yu was guilty of cheating with a consort just after the emperor's death, so he should be punished. Wu Yu realized that he has been conspired against, and as he tried to stand, he failed and noticed that he had been poisoned. Later, Prince Rong arrived and started pointing and accusing Wu Yu of being materialistic, merciless, and a martial arts fanatic that has no honor. Commander Wu of the Wu Kingdom military also gave foul remarks about him. Both of these people were punished by Wu Yu in the past due to their wrongdoings, and now they want revenge as he is down. Wu Yu tried to voice out his thoughts but was interrupted by Yuan Taxi when she warned him that he has no right to argue and ordered someone to call immortal Hao Tian. Wu Yu could not believe that the immortal sent by the heavens to protect Wu Kingdom was alarmed by this situation. Immortals usually don't interfere with mortal affairs, they only eradicate evil. He saw a glimmer of hope to get justice. The door opened, and a shadow of a human figure could be seen covered in mist. As he stepped in, a man with long white hair appeared. It was the immortal Hao Tian of the Wu Kingdom. As immortal Hao Tian entered, everyone present knelt down in respect and greeted the immortal. When Hao Tian approached, Wu Yu also greeted him with respect and requested justice. Inside his mind, Hao Tian is a righteous person and is sure to give him justice. Immortal asked Yuan Tai what happened in the kingdom. She explained Wu Yu's adultery and asked the immortal to punish him. Immortal stated that Wu Yu is not worthy, his cultivation will be abolished, and he will send to serve in the Northern Army. Wu Yu is in disbelief that Hao Tian made a judgment against him without any investigation. He concluded that no one can defeat him in the Wu Kingdom and only Hao Tian can suppress him. As a result, the higher-ups in the palace sided with each other, and Hao Tian was behind all of this. He realized that even the immortal that represents the will of heaven turned out to be a selfish and ruthless person. He laughed in vain as one of the ministers criticized him. Hao Tian took out a pouch containing soul-severing powder that could cut off the meridians and abolish a person's cultivation. He ordered the guards to make Wu Yu drink it. The two guards quickly followed the order and forced Wu Yu to drink the soul-severing powder. Wu Yu was full of grief as he knelt on the ground helplessly. In this life, he was the strongest mortal in Wu Kingdom, but he could not compete with Hao Tian. If in the next life, he will definitely get his revenge. His 10 years of hard work was all wasted. He passed out after taking the concoction. A few hours later, as Wu Yu stood in a prison wagon, surrounded by guards, a woman ran up to him and called his name. She was her sister, Princess Wu Wu. He told his sister that he couldn't do anything because heaven wants him to die, and not to worry because he will die with a clear conscience. Her sister was depressed. She could not do anything but just kneel and cry to watch his brother taken away. Moments later, somewhere in the northern mountains covered by snow, in the prison wagon, Wu Yu felt like he was going to die because of the weakness of his body and the extreme cold. He then lost consciousness and fell into the wagon. The guards thought he was already dead and picked up his body and threw him down the cliff. When his body fell to the ground, his golden pendant clung to his body and was absorbed by his body. His unconscious body floated as golden waves came out of the pendant. Inside his consciousness, a huge golden pillar appeared. Wu Yu got shocked at the sight of a heavenly pillar appearing in his consciousness. The huge pillar released a high sound, and as he put his hands on his ears, a huge figure similar to Sun Wukong appeared before him. He introduced himself as the great sage of the heavenly palace and asked him if he has the destiny to pass on his teachings and rise to the heaven. On the other hand, inside the palace, Yuan Cai is on her knees, thanking the immortal. He told her that there is nothing to thank for besides her. She is his disciple. He further told her to a cultivator the abolition of a prince is a normal matter and informed Yuan Cai he will let Yuan Hao take the throne the next day. On her knees, she thanked Hao Tian. He approached her and informed Yuan Cai that Yuan Hao is his family, even though he is not suitable for cultivation. It's better to be a moral emperor, as Yuan Hao is an illegitimate child of the consort Yuan Cai and Hao Tian. In a worried tone, she reminded Hao Tian that Wu Yu is very skillful and she fears that he will rise again. Hao Tian assured her that Wu Yu will not survive because he ordered Wang Xing to intercept and eliminate him. Hence, they should not fear him. Yuan Cai felt relieved at his words. Meanwhile, somewhere in the mountains, as Wu Yu regained consciousness, he could not believe to be still alive. When he got up, he noticed that the effects of the soul breaker disappeared. He is depressed that his fifth heaven martial arts, forging flesh, grinding tendons, bone refining, internal strength, and blood transfusion, everything he had trained for is now destroyed. He was still confused about the dream. Then he remembered that at a young age, when his mother died, an old man came to his window every night to tell stories. He couldn't see that old man even if he tried. One day that old man gave him the goldenrod pendant and instructed him to wear it all time, that it will keep him safe. Back to the present. Now that the pendant is gone, he assumed that the figure that appeared in his dream was the old man, but now is not the right time to ponder on it, and he has to cultivate Vajra's body of immortality. So, he sat in a lotus position and focused on his cultivation. The first of Vajra's body will be Vajra forging flesh. After an extreme focus on his cultivation, he tried his strength and destroyed a tree using his knee. After that, he went back to his cultivation. The next day, after training Vajra's body, he tried his strength and punched a big stone that shattered with a single blow. He is pleased that he accomplished the first level of martial heaven, and his strength is equal to 3 war horses and 3 times greater than the normal rank 1 martial heaven. He was significantly amazed by his progress, and without wasting time, he immediately prepared to train second level Vajra's tendon. He continued enhancing his body and training hard continuously to practice Vajra's tendon for 6 days. On the 7th day, he finally achieved the second layer of Vajra's tendon, and his strength is now 5 times that of the same rank martial artist. With a strength of 10 war horses, now he is finally close to achieving rank 4 martial heaven. He suddenly smelled a foul stench in the air. Turning around, he saw a giant snake demon. A blue mist suddenly appeared around the snake as it transformed into a beautiful female human. Wu Yu pointed at her, saying she is the disciple of immortal Hao Tian, Wan Qing. She is also the reason that thousands of people disappeared in the Wu Kingdom over the past 10 years. Wan Qing stated that she came to fulfill Hao Tian's orders to erase Wu Yu from the world. He mocked Wan Qing, saying that she will not be able to defeat him alone. She assured him that before she was no match for him, but now she can easily kill him, as he had lost his martial arts. Being confident, Wan Qing immediately rushed forward to attack. Fortunately, Wu Yu dodged her attack, combined with a heavy blow directly to her stomach that sent her flying far away. Wan Qing is in pain and could not believe him to be still strong, although his meridians have been cut. Wu Yu seized the opportunity, rushed towards Wan Qing, and dealt another fatal blow that sent her flying into a tree. But he wasn't done yet and jumped to attack again. Wan Qing quickly transformed into a giant snake and threatened to eat Wu Yu. But Wu Yu did not budge and kicked the snake. Then he rode on its head and started hitting it with a stone. The snake cried in pain and begged to spare her life, but Wu Yu does not care about it and planned to finish her off. However, before he dealt the finishing blow, she shouted to reveal the secrets about his emperor father's death. She told him that Hao Qian and Yuan Texi is behind her father's death, and they used many poison pills in his father's food to slowly kill him. What he heard astounded him, and his anger were shaking him. The snake saw the opportunity to act and pushed him away with his head. Wu Yu was thrown down the cliff due to the impact and fell into the Bibo River. Wan Qing was relieved. She was sure that Wu Yu was erased from the world because no one could survive the Bibo River. Some days later, Wu Yu woke up in a room, astonished that survived and wondering where he was. An old man carrying a bowl noticed that he is awake. Wu Yu noticed that the old man had the same voice as the one who gave him the golden pendant, so he asked if he had seen him 10 years ago, and the old man told him he has been in mountains for decades, so it's impossible for them to have met. As the old man handed him the medicine bowl, he asked where he was and got shocked to discover that he is at Immortal Gate. The old man asked him if he has heard about Zongmen, the sect of cultivating immortals. Wu Yu informed him that only a few people know about Zongmen because immortals don't interfere in worldly affairs. Wu Yu thanked him for saving his life and introduced himself. The old man also introduced himself as Sun Wudo and informed that he was not the one that saved him, but rather the head teacher, and explained that the head teacher arranged for him to become a handyman here. As he drank the bowl of soup, he noticed that the medicinal efficiency here is extraordinary. Soon after, Wudo told Wu Yu to follow him. As he stepped outside, he was astonished by the sight of Zongmen, a floating island that looked like a fairyland on earth with several buildings atop. Wudo informed him that most of the Taoism here is related to the sword. That's why it's called Tongshan Sword Sect. Wudo handed him the uniform and asked him to change and follow along. He then informed Wu Yu about Zongmen. The strongest among Zongmen is the head teacher, the legendary Jindan Immortal, after him the elders, the core disciples, and lastly outer disciples. There is a difference in status between core and outer disciples. The number of outer disciples is several times that of core disciples. However, other than that, most of the disciples are handymen, taking care of daily food, spirit beasts, and fairy spirits. Handymen cannot leave until they reach the 5th rank of martial arts heaven at the age of 15. At the 6th rank, they will have the opportunity to pass the assessment and become formal disciples. Consequently, they will no longer be handymen and can start cultivating immortality. Wudo also reminded him that the most important rule for a handyman is not upset an immortal. It does not matter if he is an outer disciple because he can be killed. As he looked up at the sky, Wu Yu agreed with the old man's advice. Wu Yu noticed an immortal in the sky flying on a crane. Wudo immediately bowed Wu Yu's head and informed him that she is Su Yanli, the peak master of Yanli Peak. She is the direct disciple of the head teacher and highest status among core disciples. He learned from the old man that the assessment would be held in 2 months. When they arrived at the fairy beast garden, the old man instructed him that their task, for now, is to take care of fairy beasts. There they were greeted by an arrogant man, Zhao Chuan, the chief handyman with his lackeys. He asked the old man who was with him. Wudo answered him politely. Chuan thought that if Wudo's companion is the one saved by the head teacher, he probably would be strong as he survived the fatal tides of the Bibo River, so he asked Wu Yu to spar with him to show his capabilities. Wudo desperately explained that Wu Yu's body is weak because he has not recovered yet, and moreover Zhao Chuan is in the 4th rank of martial heaven and is not fair to fight with someone weaker. Luckily, Chuan was annoyed and let them be. He also threatened that they will be sacrificed if they made any mistake in performing tasks. At the same time, in the air, 4 immortals are talking while riding their big cranes. The man said he came to see his senior sister to learn the way of immortality. Then, the cranes landed in the fairy beast garden. On the other hand, Wudo reminded Wu Yu to not look directly at the immortals. As the immortals passed by, Wu Yu remembered if it not for the soul-severing powder, he would have been one of the immortals. By late afternoon, Wu Yu was sweeping an outer disciple. Situ Jin was furious when he saw his crane was lifeless. Zhao Chuan pointed at Wu Yu and accused him of serving Situ Jin's crane. Wu Yu tried to deny the accusation, but Situ Jin did not even listen to Wu Yu and whipped him angrily. Upon the fierce hit, Wu Yu crumbled on the ground while Situ Jin insulted him for being a lowly slave. Wudo intervened. He took the blame and begged to spare Wu Yu. Still, Wu Yu knows that Zhao Chuan is targeting him, so intends to confront it head-on. Situ Jin smirked. He hates people who are useless yet dared to show bravery. The woman beside him even pointed out he should be finished to set an example for others. Situ Jin agreed with her and whipped Wu Yu with all his strength, sending him flying far away. After concluding that he is not alive, the immortals left. On the other side, Wu Yu was still alive, bearing the injuries he received because of this humiliation. He is determined to join the sect to pay back. The old man worriedly rushed to him and advised him not to hold grudge against the immortals, but Wu Yu intends to take revenge as he is the successor of Sun Wukong. 10 days later, in a forest near the mountains, after continuous rigorous training, Wu Yu finally reached the 3rd level of Vajra's body and was not far from achieving Golden Flame Bones. He was so immersed in his training that he did not notice his surrounding as Zhao Chuan and his lackeys sneaked up on him. Zhao Chuan felt strange that how can he survive after getting beaten up badly? He must possess some sort of treasure that helped him to defend himself against Jin's attacks. Therefore, he threatened Wu Yu to take out the treasure, otherwise they would kill him. Wu Yu bravely rejected them. He knew that Zhao Chuan is at the 4th rank of martial heaven, so he might be able to kill him with some effort. Upon hearing his rejection, one of the lackeys stated they would finish Wu Yu for being stubborn and requested permission from Chuan to crush him. He dashed forward, intending to finish Wu Yu in a blow. However, he remains unfazed. He dodges the punch and dealt a heavy blow to his stomach, sending him flying that made Zhao Chuan surprised. The other lackeys, upon seeing their comrade beaten up, rushed towards Wu Yu to beat him. He is still unfazed, and to their surprise, Wu Yu started beating them one after the other and finally beat all of them. As Zhao Chuan watched his lackeys beaten up, he realized that Wu Yu is precise and professional in his technique, so he decided to fight him on his own. On the other side, Wu Yu is astonished by the effectiveness of Vajra's body and that simple attacks cannot harm him. He smirked and provoked Zhao Chuan to fight him. Nonetheless, Zhao Chuan draws his sword and is confident that Wu Yu's physical body cannot resist his sword. However, Wu Yu is very positive. He clenched his fist and dashed forward using his Dragon Tiger Fist technique, but Zhao Chuan dodged his blow and swayed his sword. Wu Yu noticed Zhao Chuan's power. He is already in the inner strength realm and forged his organs, so it's not easy to deal with him. Chuan immediately used Pure Blossom sword technique and launched multiple wind blades. Fortunately, Wu Yu used Monkey Ghost stance to dodge the blades. Now that both Wu Dou and his life are on the line, he is determined to fight to the death. He continued to dodge the attacks. Chuan got irritated and mocked him if he only knows to dodge. Chuan got full of him and swiftly attacked from behind, slashing Wu Yu in his chest and crashing him into a tree. Fortunately, he survived as he had already achieved Golden Flame Bones. Otherwise, he would have died. As he leaned against a tree, Zhao Chuan and his lackeys approached. The lackeys suggested torturing Wu Yu until he tells the truth and then killing him. Zhao Chuan raised his sword and attacked Wu Yu, but unexpectedly, Wu Yu stopped his sword with his hands. They were shocked and could not believe Wu Yu still had power. As he held the sword with his left hand, he used the Azure Dragon Fist technique and punched Chuan in the face, which led to his death. After he defeated Chuan, he breathed a sigh of relief. Fear, shock, and stuttering gripped the 4 lackeys. They threatened Wu Yu that he will be punished by Sword Sect. He pointed his sword at them as they begged for mercy. But Wu Yu is full of them and slayed them one after the other with their master's sword. As he stands looking at his left hand, he was grateful to the great sage for giving him a new life. He then hides the sword in the soil to use it later in the entrance exam, but unannounced to him, a woman behind the tree witnessed everything. It was Su Yanli. She wondered what kind of training he has done to defeat Zhao Chuan. On the other side, Wu Yu is sure that at the current rank of Vajra's body, his wounds will recover in a day, so he must hide the injuries from Wu Dou to not make him worried. Later he arrived at his dorm. He thought Wu Dou should be asleep by now. Upon entering the house, he notices a bowl of medicine with a letter and reads it. He promised himself that he will definitely fulfill the wish of the old man by winning the assessment. 2 days later, at the Tongshan Peak in the Tongshan Immortal Palace, Su Yanli reported Wu Yu's actions to his master. His master asked what she intends to do. She explained that Wu Yu is not guilty of anything based on the teachings of her master's immortal way is the way of predation, so she intends to take Wu Yu under her. Headmaster Feng Suyed explained that his way of immortality is great, and with the techniques of Tongshan, she will reach the Golden Core stage soon, or even the rank of teacher. Su Yanli politely agreed with her master, saying she understands. Her master was impressed by her words. Furthermore, he also intends to protect Wu Yu as he is destined to become immortal. 1 month later, Wu Do is concerned about Wu Yu and advised him not to go out and just rest. From what he knows, Zhao Chuan and his lackeys died due to a demon going berserk. With a bright smile, he told Wu Do not to worry as he will remain near the fairy beast garden. The old man agreed and reminded him to be careful. As he leaves the house, he is glad that the old treated him like his own son. Somewhere in the beast garden, he sits in a lotus stance to cultivate Vajra's body technique, 4th layer, 5 spiritual viscera. In this layer, he needs to separate pure, purple, yellow, white, and black gold spirits and fuse them together to be successful. But before fusion, he has to tear his 5 viscera, which will bring excruciating pain. As he tears his 5 viscera, he feels excruciating pain throughout his body, but is determined to join the immortal path as he only got 1 chance, so there is no space failure. As he bent on the ground, tearing and fusing his viscera, moments later he finally succeeded in achieving 4th layer 5 spiritual viscera. What he did not expect is to be able to achieve 4th stage of mortal body refinement, which has a power equal to 134 warhorses and is even stronger than the common stage 6 of mortal body refinement. While holding his sword, he reminded himself that it was his final day as a handyman. Moments later, Wu Do arrived and informed him that it's time for work. While doing their tasks, the worried old man reminded him not to go anywhere or he might end up like Zhao Chuan. Wu Yu agreed and asked the old man if he intends to watch the entrance exam. At the same time, in the air, while the immortals were riding their cranes, Situ Jin's eyes glinted as he looked down. When Wu Yu noticed the coming immortals, Wu Do advised him to hide, but it's too late as the immortals had already noticed. A disciple pointed at Wu Yu with shock. Situ Jin explained he used most of his strength while beating him, yet he still survived. Situ Jin approached them and mocked Wu Yu for still being alive. He politely greeted the immortal and informed him that he struggled to stay alive and thanked him for having mercy. Hua Chen, an outer sect disciple, interrupted and mocked Situ Jin for being weak, saying he could not beat a servant. If it was her, she would have no problem torturing the culprit. Situ Jin agreed with her and explained to Wu Yu that it's not easy to forget what happened. Wu Do interjected, saying he was the one who brought Wu Yu, so he should be punished. Wu Yu intervened to protect the old man and said to ignore them. As a result, Situ Jin got angry and said he has no right to ignore his order. Wu Yu argued that even a servant cannot be insulted like this. Situ Jin raised his whip, but just before he hit, he flew away and crashed into a rock. In the aftermath of the blow, he was surrounded by dust and demanded to know who had the nerve to attack him. Just as his front became visible, Su Yanli appeared. Su Yanli explained that this is her territory and 3 of them are not allowed to come here from now on. Besides, Wu Yu is a handyman of her peak. If he needs to be punished, she would do it herself, not him. He warned Su Yanli that his little brother Sediminglang has already reached the peak of the body refinement stage and his talent was much better than hers. Hua Chen added that Sect Guardian Sovereign is ready to accept him as a disciple, and in the future, his status will exceed hers. With fierce eyes, she asked them if they were threatening her. The 3 immortals quickly turned around to their cranes. Sifu Jin explained he would not dare threaten her. He would just leave Yanli Peak. But deep inside, he is shaking with anger and wants to take revenge when his brother becomes powerful. Wu Yu politely thanked Subianli for her assistance. As the women flew away, Wu Yu realized that Ming Lang is already at the peak and defied heaven's law, whereas he is still at rank 5. The next day, at the Ascension Peak, everyone is excited about the exam. Wu Yu brought the old man and informed him that the competitors will enter from the bottom and the old man can watch everything from up here. Before going down to the competition site, Wu Yu told the old man he will explain everything about the competition later when he comes back. He then went to the bottom of the peak towards the competition site to register for the assessment. He is confident to join the immortal path today. The registration was simple as it was merely reporting one's name and which peak one belongs to. The organizer had the data in his hand. He raised his head to look at Wu Yu and asked if he is at the 6th tier body refining realm, as Wu Yu was not recorded as a cultivator in the records. As Wu Yu nodded, the organizer allowed Wu Yu to go ahead and try his strength to be eligible for the exam. Behind the organizer stood 100 bulky, energetic warhorses. Each warhorse was complete and had a fiery temper. The war horses were tied to pole ropes, and Wu Yu, under the direction of the organizer, gripped the rope. It was simple to verify whether he was really at the 6th tier through a tug of war with 100 war horses. The organizer then cracked his whip on the horses. The horses felt the pain and began to run in a frenzy. Their energy brought a terrifying power charging down the rope. The 100 war horses raised a thick cloud of dust as fearsome as any enemy on the battlefield. But Wu Yu had been prepared. With both hands gripping the rope, he used all strength of his body's muscles, tendons, and bones to drag the 100 war horses back. After the approval of his eligibility, the organizer gave Wu Yu a red paper talisman and told him if his life is in danger or he wants to surrender, he can just crush the talisman and the immortal sect disciples will save him. Wu Yu held the red talisman. On it was complex symbols that he could not understand, but he could feel its power. The organizer directed him toward the examination site. Wu Yu carefully stowed the fire talisman away and then walked towards a cave at the foot of the mountain. Above it were the words Immortal Path, the site for stage 1 of the entrance examination. It was said before that around 300 people had met the requirements for the test. On the Immortal Promotion Plateau, Wu Dao had lived left and right to find Wu Yu, as beside him a fat, burly servant has taken his spot. More than 100,000 disciples were present, necks craned, waiting for the examination to begin. But the most attention-grabbing was the platform of jade floating in the air. On the platform were 3 thrones. The one in the middle was the largest, and on it sat an elder with white hair and a white robe. It was Elder Mu Ji, while on the right seat a white-robed girl. It was Su Yanli, master of Yanli Peak. Elder Mu Ji asked Yanli if she knows any good servants attending the examination. He knew that Yanli would not pay attention to average disciples. Right then, Su Yanli said just one named Wu Yu. Elder Mu Ji got curious about him, so he asked Yanli about him. Yanli replied she is there to gauge his abilities. In the sky, the immortal cranes flocked. One of them was Saidu Jin and the other 3. Hua Qianyu arrogantly asked what is there to see in a bunch of servants. We were chosen by the sect and are 10 times stronger than this bunch of servants. Saidu Jin smiled by telling them just to watch them do battle like beasts and amuse us. One of the girls, Liu Mukshi, advised Saidu Jin to not be arrogant, as among these servants, there are some who have reached the 7th tier of body refining and are stronger than them. In the cave, the battle on the immortal path had already started. In front was a stone plaque on which words were written in fresh blood. Just looking at it put fear in the depth of the soul. At present, roughly 300 disciples were in the dark belly of the mountain. Because they were all competitors, there was some distance between them. The official examination was about to start. At this time, disciples undertaking tests had begun to discuss the most powerful among them. They pointed at Zhao Danlong, 14 years old, who is said to be the 7th tier body refining realm, with the strength of 200 war horses and proficiency in using a middle grade technique 13 swords of Zhao. The crowd murmured as they saw another youth, Zhu Hao, 13 years old, also a 7th tier and a natural-born fighter. He is also proficient in Demon Slayer 8 style technique and Phantom Step technique. There was one more called King Mang, 13 years old. She was also a servant of a core disciple and a commoner. She is proficient in King Mang's point. Although these 3 were very good, but Wu Yu did not need to come in first place to become a disciple of the immortal sect. Therefore, they were not ultimate rivals. He really respected these young children for reaching the 7th tier at a young age. Wu Yu was just feeling embarrassed when some immortal sect disciples appeared in front. From their midst, a black-haired, black-clothed young man announced that the immortal path will soon open. Everyone must pass 3 substages to clear the test. The risk is great, and if there is any danger to your life, crush the talisman and the disciples will save their lives, as only 100 out of 300 disciples can emerge from the immortal path and participate in promotion fight, therefore should do their best. As the last words fell, the belly of the mountain rumbled, and a massive door opened in front of them, revealing a dark and bloody path. The path was wide. The servants clamored against each other to charge in, afraid of missing out. Wu Yu was in no hurry. He understood that those who took point on this immortal's path were often those who met most painful attacks first. Drawing his longsword of refined steel, Wu Yu advanced in the middle of the pack. In this vast mountain belly, the 300 servants separated and proceeded at high speed. Just as they entered, some screamed and lamented as a red-horned serpent appeared in front. Anything that could make a 6th-tier body-refining real lament was a scary beast indeed. Just as they charged into the forest, in an instant the sounds of killing rang out, even though almost everyone was at the same rank, but their physique, experience, and tenacity differed. Some backed off, while some advanced at speed. Wu Yu could only watch those around him killing. The red horned snake came swinging with bestial power toward Wu Yu. He gripped the longsword in both hands and executed a horizontal slash. He wanted to swat the huge snake and advance forward, but he had not expected the serpent to have the same strength of 100 warhorses as him. Before the snake could retaliate, Wu Yu used enormous strength to untangle his sword and brandished the sword into the snake's body that pierced his heart. The red-horned serpent collapsed to the ground. Zhao Danlong, who fighting near, complimented Wu Yu for his technique and exploded out with frightening speed and charged forward, saying that the number 1 position and key condensation pill will definitely be his to claim. Wu Yu pondered this for a moment. As the entire audience is waiting outside, the first one out would definitely be the center of attention. Previously, Wu Yu's goal was top 100, but thinking of Sun Wudou's eagerness, he wanted to be the first one out now. In the darkness, he shot forward with a beam of golden light. After passing the forest, they came to another terrain. In front of them was all swamp. The swamp soil was very soft, and there were definitely countless beasts hiding below. At this moment, a disciple charged in, and suddenly the marsh shook. A black crocodile charged out and tried to bite the servant between its jaws. Wu Yu was right there as the servant howled. Without much more thought, he immediately rushed up to save the servant girl. As he recognized the black-scaled beast as Fushan alligator from back in his days, he remembered its weakness and stabbed his longsword downwards. The sword pierced through its brain and the alligator immediately. Wu Yu was calm. He pulled the wounded servant from the jaws of the giant alligator. Wu Yu did not say more. As time was tight, he entered the swamp in the blink of an eye using ghostly monkey steps and traversed the swamp. A black-robed sect disciple appeared beside the girl. Seeing her safe, he looked at Wu Yu's figure and turned to the girl to warn her of the dangers. Wu Yu's legs found solid ground and he felt a sense of relief. But in his heart, he knew there were heaps of gravel ahead of him. Evidently, the most terrifying test was here. There were 3 waves of beasts, and this was the last one. Circling the huge stone, there was a narrow path ahead and a small path that led to a tunnel. But this narrow path was packed with blood-sucking devil apes. This was a type of black ape with blood-red body and around 20 feet tall. It was said that these monkeys loved the smell of fresh blood. Only by slaying their way through the monkeys could they pass. Out of the group of servants, some charged forward. Wu Yu was among them. One of the apes charged at Wu Yu with blazing bloody eyes, which made him startled. As the ape tried to punch him, Wu Yu channeled all of his energy into his fist and punched back. The force of their clash threw both of them away. Wu Yu realized that it's a test for footwork technique, so he dodged the further attacks using his footwork technique and charged forward. But this was just one amongst many. The small path was filled with many demon apes. The servants behind continued to stream forward and tried to kill the demon apes. Even though the 3 at the 7th tier of body refining tried their best, they were not able to break past the horde. Wu Yu realized that the group method is not favorable for the strong ones, as the people behind will take advantage. That means the best way is to use one's own skills to charge forward. Wu Yu just realized this, and so does the others, especially the strongest 3. They already used their skills to push forward. At this time, Wu Yu naturally wanted to be the first who rushed out, but he was basically the 4th to charge into the horde. Wu Yu continued to charge. Luckily, he had trained the ghostly monkey steps, so he was able to keep up the pace. Just at this moment, a huge howl that reached heaven sounded from the end of the road. All blood-sucking began to howl, which frightened all the servants rushing forward. Apparently, a devil ape had actually absorbed enough blood mist and turned into a demon. Given the power of devil ape after it became a demon, its frightening power would definitely rise above the martial way. Luckily, it was undergoing its transformation. King Mang charged forward to attack the demon ape, but got punched by demon ape into the ground and almost collapsed. So the 3 of them, Zhao, King Mang, and Zhu Hu, decided to attack together. The 3 7th tier engaged the ape demon. They used the ultimate techniques of cloud-piercing sword, green cloud sword, and demon slash to counter the demon ape. These 3 were not bad. Their attacks left many wounds on the body of the ape demon, but they were not fatal. Furthermore, their energy expenditure was enormous. It was not that Wu Yu did not want to help, but the three already occupied the 8th demon, so Wu Yu had no way to assist. The 8th demon was extremely incensed and was spitting blood. With a roar, the scent of blood filled the air, and wherever it touched, a rot appeared. In a panic, Zhao Danlong and the other two hurriedly backed off. Wu Yu's chance had finally come. He gripped his longsword and passed the three, rolling out like the East Sea. This time, he was closest to the exit of the Immortal Path. On the outside of Immortal Promotion Plateau, everyone was cheering for the first person who will pass. Elder Muji stroked his beard and narrowed his eyes while watching the exit of Immortal Path and asked Su Yanli for her opinion that who will emerge victorious. Su Yanli was watching keenly as well. She told that the last stage is to test one's footwork, so King Mang will be victorious because of her higher grade footwork technique. Elder Muji said Ju Hu might be first as he had lived and grown up amongst beasts. Not only them, but more than 100,000 pairs of eyes were fixed on the Immortal Path exit. The servants sitting beside Sun Wudo also started discussing who will be first, but Sun Wudo was in no mood, as his gaze had constantly been looking for Wu Yu. Just then, the entire crowd roared. Sun Wudo looked over. A silhouette came charging out of the Immortal Path. Instantly, all the quibbles and discussions were silenced when this youth appeared. More than 100,000 people stared at the silhouette on Immortal Promotion Plateau silently. Even the Elder Muji was rooted in silence. He squinted and squinted, but it was a youth that he had never seen before. Beside him, Su Yanli was probably the first person to see clearly. As she said his name, her lips parted and her eyes danced with surprise. Elder Muji only understood that he is Wu Yu. He could vaguely sense that there was more to Wu Yu than met the eye, but it's a pity that he is quite old. Only a handful of people knew who Wu Yu was and which mountain he belonged to. Everyone stared at him in shock. A Yanli mountain servant rushed to Sun Wudo and pointed a quavering finger at the youth, telling him that it's Wu Yu who came first. Sun Wudo's ears were hard of hearing and his eyesight was not too good either. Sun Wudo stared. He was just thinking that this person really resembled Wu Yu. It really was Wu Yu. This scared him out of his wits. He thought that Wu Yu had gone to relieve himself, but he got lost and is now on Immortal Promotion Plateau. He thought that Wu Yu blundered his way there. He stared blankly at Wu Yu, and Wu Yu also raised his head. He looked at Sun Wudo. He waved a hand at Sun Wudo, gesturing that it was him. Wu Yu finally accomplished his wish and his heart was calmed. Sun Wudo clutched his chair with both trembling hands. His eyes were brighter, or rather to him, Wu Yu was now standing in the spot of his dreams. In the sky, Hua Chanyu hurriedly called Situ Jin to tell him about Wu Yu, but seeing him, Situ Jin's expression was darker than ever before. Liu Muxi's eyes also glinted savagely, saying how could he have reached 6th tier from 0 in a month? Clearly, he must have been concealing his ability. No wonder Situ Jin did not manage to kill him. Hua Canyu's face lost color, and she reminded Situ Jin of the way he had treated Du Yu in the past. He will definitely come for revenge. Hearing her, Situ Jin forced a smile, saying, how could I be scared of a lowly servant who just became an official disciple? There will be a lot of opportunities to deal with him in the future, as there are still further stages of the entrance examination. As long as he does not become one of the outer disciples, then he will be forever lower than us. As Elder Muju rose up, his voice floated in the sky, and he congratulated Wu Yu for being the first to emerge from Immortal's path, and also informed him that his name will be recorded in the lore of the Heavenly Sword sect. This was something that could be admired everywhere. Instantly, 100,000 people were cheering Wu Yu's name in a frenzy. He was the pride and dream of all the servants. It was what they all aimed for. If they did not succeed by the time they were 15, then they basically all consigned to Sun Wudo's track. On the other side, after confirming the events, Sun Wudo's expression was astounded. His eyes gradually reddened. After a time, King Mang, Ju Huo, and Zhao Danlong had summoned the 8th demon and emerged from the Immortal's path. As Zhao Danlong came out, he hefted his sword and charged toward Wu Yu with the intention to kill him, while criticizing him for taking advantage when they were down. Wu Yu turned around and instantly blocked the attack from Zhao Danlong. Elder Muji angrily shouted to stop, that evaporated Zhao Danlong's anger. Elder Muji further explained that even though Wu Yu had taken advantage, but he had not broken any rules, so he will not be punished. Zhao Danlong could only stare balefully at Wu Yu and told him to watch out later on the platform battles. Gradually, 100 servants made their way out, each one covered in blood, standing under the gaze of thousands. After 100 arrived, the rest could only go back down the mountain. The immortal path exit was closed. 100 young men and women stood under the gazes of 100,000. They were full of fighting spirit and fire. Their blood boiled as they embarked on the path to becoming immortal. Elder Muji stood up and started informing the rules of the Immortal Promotion Plateau. He told everyone to make sure to stand up on Immortal Platform, and if any got beaten down or crushed their talisman, they would be considered eliminated. Killing is strictly prohibited, as a killer, due to his wicked nature, cannot become immortal. Finally, when only 30 disciples are left on the plateau, the battle will be over. Everyone was allowed to team up or fight individually to win the battle. The rules seemed simple, but it was actually very risky. A chaotic battle was the true fight of the immortal Tao. Elder Muji further explained that the tradition of the sword sect promotion battle is to obtain the immortal sphere, and also the sect has prepared 3 huge bonuses for the disciple who obtain the immortal sphere. First was a spirit condensation pill, which increases the success to break through body refining realm into chi condensation realm. The second prize was a supreme grade weapon called Demon Vanishing Blade. It has mystical properties and can even compare to normal immortal treasure. The third prize will be eligible for becoming core disciple. Elder Muji further explained that whoever can take the immortal sphere and hold it for 60 breaths of time will be deemed to be the owner of it and rank first. Hearing about the prizes, the crowd gasped. The spirit condensation pill and demon banishing blade were something coveted by even the core disciples. Elder Muji concluded his announcement, and then the Immortal Promotion Plateau's battle formally began. The immortal sphere rose up into the air, then plummeted with terrifying speed. Elder Muji pulled a move, and the immortal sphere landed on Wu Yu's head. As it descended, all the candidates surged toward Wu Yu's direction. At this time, the danger is quite high, as the battle has just started, and it's when there are most competitors. Whoever holds the sphere will definitely be mobbed. Wu Yu had already thought it out. At this time, when a majority of the candidates were rushing at him, he found an exit and then fled. Just as he fled, his original position was filled with people. Immediately, it was chaos. Wu Yu stayed at the edges of the promotion plateau. There were too many people present, and it was inconvenient to act. Even though Wu Yu was standing at the periphery, someone was staring at him. He was a tall and sturdy servant, a full head taller than him. He was charging toward Wu Yu. Wu Yu instantly took his stance and unleashed a blow using the technique Tide Chopper, a wave breaker, to counter the opponent. It was the first move of the Eastern Sea Whale slaying sword. As their weapons clashed, they created a huge sound. Wu Yu's hands were quick. He hit the weak spot on the battle axe and forced his opponent's axe to fall from his hands. Although his opponent was broad of shoulders, Wu Yu was still superior in terms of strength. With a sweep of his leg, he felled the brawny man. Wu Yu crashed heavily into him, and his opponent flew out cleanly, landing with a rumble outside the Immortal Promotion Plateau. In the sky, Sedu Jin was sitting atop his immortal crane. Seeing this, both guys and girls had ugly expressions. Hua Qianyu spoke to Sedu Jin, saying even the 6th-tier body refining realm was easily defeated by him. He is definitely on our level. But Sedu Jin arrogantly said, even if Wu Yu is this capable, he will be nothing in front of him. As the fight goes on, everyone's attention shifts towards Zhao Danlong, as he had taken hold of Immortal Sphere and many people were ganging on him. Zhao Danlong was in a tough spot. He displayed countless tactics to intimidate his opponents. He held the sphere for around 20 breaths, and more than 10 people were eliminated in this time. But in the next instant, he was ambushed by Zhu Guo and lost the Immortal Sphere while almost getting knocked off the Immortal Promotion Plateau. Zhao Danlong was covered in blood, and he fell heavily to the side. Even though Zhao Danlong was heavily injured, he was still able to hold on to stay on the immortal platform. Just as he got hold of himself, he noticed Wu Yu nearby. Zhao Danlong laughed coldly and shouted at Wu Yu to be a coward for hiding in the periphery of the platform. Hearing it, Wu Yu replied in a chill tone that battles are not one-dimensional, so he always favored the result, not the method. Zhao Danlong gnashed his teeth as he called him a coward and moved away. The entire melee was very intense. At present, the one being surrounded was Zhu Hu, who still held the immortal sphere. Just while he was countering the attacks, King Mang, who had waited for this moment, charged forward and attacked Ju Hu. As Ju Hu blocked her attack, King Mang did not waste any time and hid in the crowd. Ju Hu had to defend the sphere, but it was a pity that he had to defend himself against, and he only had one hand to support it with one hand. A bolt of green light flashed past. Ju Hu's arm was injured and his body had been scored by countless blades. He fell into Zhao Danlong's footsteps. Elder Muji smiled, saying that now only King Mang has a chance of taking Immortal Sphere. King Mang was one of his disciples' younger sisters. If her future was bright, he would rise as well. Su Yanlo pointed towards the unwounded Wu Yu. Elder Muji explained that Wu Yu had been biding his time by staying at the periphery of the immortal platform. He might be good, but not good as King Mang. Xing Mang was clever. After the little girl wounded Ju Hu, she did not immediately snatch the sphere, but retreated to the edge, letting the other servants fight. Ju Hu and Zhao Danlong were heavily injured, and they were not King Mang's match, so the little girl lifted her head to look at Wu Yu and asked him if he wants to compete for Immortal Sphere. Wu Yu gripped the longsword and waded in. Finally, it was time to act. King Mang did not say anymore. Her King Mang's point weaved through the crowd. A few sword slashes flashed out and the Immortal Sphere was in her hands. After catching it, King Mang instantly shouted, "If anyone tried to snatch it again, she will not show mercy." The little girl's eyes widened and scared the competitors into retreating. There were only about 40 people left, and perhaps only 10 had set their hearts on the sphere. But the chances of them teaming up were low. King Mang held the Immortal Sphere in one hand and gestured at Wu Yu with the other, which held a longsword to challenge him. At this time, all eyes fell on these two. This was the turn of events for Wu Yu. But Wu Yu would not give up on the Immortal Sphere. Presently, he was the only one who dared to fight King Mang. Under thousands of gazes, Wu Yu's eyes shimmered with golden light, and he rushed forward with his longsword. He used the technique Tide Chopper, Wave Breaker, the first move of Whale Slaying Sword. King Mang only needed to block him and then hold on to the sphere for 60 breaths. She used the Green Cloud Sword Shadow technique. Her movements were exquisite. Her sword shimmered a green cloud that formed in front of Wu Yu. This sword pierced the cloud and reached King Mang in an instant, but a pity it did not wound King Mang. The girl's feet moved, and with sublime footwork, she avoided his attack. King Mang went around him to attack, but Wu Yu instantly avoided the attack. Do Yu seized this chance and pressed forward. King Mang could only use her King Mang's footwork to continue retreating. Wu Yu instantly charged forward using East Sea Whale Cleave. He gripped his longsword, pointed towards the sky, and sliced down violently. It came crashing down on King Mang's head. King Mang's face had finally changed. Suddenly, the block with her technique was broken before it was even engaged, and Wu Yu's sword came crashing down. King Mang retreated a few steps. Just as she was about to counter, her foot lost surface. King Mang's face paled. Wu Yu instantly rushed forward to catch King Mang as she was falling and brought her back onto the platform. He offered to fight again, but King Mang admitted her defeat and threw the Immortal Sphere down. Wu Yu caught the Immortal Sphere. He had not thought that King Mang would be so principled at such a young age, to accept with no excuses. Wu Yu held the Immortal Sphere aloft, and no one came to fight for it, because these techniques were too powerful. As the time ended, the entire Immortal Promotion Plateau was already discussing loudly. Su Yanli's face was lit with an alluring smile as she watched Wu Yu win the competition. Elder Muji, as overseer, announced that Wu Yu had received the Immortal Sphere and will be crowned as the champion of the entrance examination. When Wu Yu heard this news, he was a little flustered. He had only wanted to enter the Immortal Sect. Who would have thought he would become the champion of examination? 100,000 servants started cheering for Wu Yu. In that instant, he was the hero in their hearts, and he embodied their dreams. King Mang pouted a little and congratulated Wu Yu. Although she was not thoroughly happy, she still said it. Wu Yu smiled back and offered King Mang to become friends. King Mang blushed as she replied back, accepting his friendship. A servant was shouting beside Sun Wudou that Wu Yu has won the competition and will become an immortal from now on. Sun Wudou was in a dazed state and regained his senses. His eyes brimmed with hot tears as he declared having no regrets in life from today onwards. High in the air, Hua Qianyu saw Sevu Jin shaking with anger. His face was ugly, and she felt a tinge of pity. At the side, Wang Yuyan's mouth was twitching, but he did not dare say more. Everyone talked about Wu Yu criticizing him. Only Situl Jin did not say anything. He felt like his face had been slapped. He was full of anger, and he had no way to vent it. On the immortal platform, Elder Muji announced that those who passed will become official disciples of Heavenly Sword Sect and asked them to follow him. As for Su Yanli, she seemed to have already left. Wu Yu politely asked Elder if he can wait for some time, as he had to arrange for someone to bring Sun Wudou back. At that time, all servants had already left, but Sun Wudou had stayed put. Wu Yu expressed his thanks to the Elder as permitted him, then went toward the crowd, bounding over to Sun Wudou, who had been waiting for him. Wu Yu looked at him. Wudou was every bit as pleasantly surprised as he had imagined. The servants besides Wudou respectfully called Wu Yu Heavenly Immortal Wu and guaranteed Wu Yu that they take Wudou back safely. Elder Muj could not be kept waiting for too long. Wu Yu hurriedly nodded and then briefly informed Sun Wudou before turning to leave. He returned to Muji, ready to leave. A bunch of servants escorting Wudou were all from Yanli Peak. They were extremely happy as one of them had become heavenly immortal, and in the future, their lives will be at ease. They escorted Wudou across the mountain while singing songs. The servants sang as they walked. Above them, the immortal crane soared. Huak Chanyu suddenly asked Situl Jin to look below. Situl Jin was irritated. She told him that it was these bunch of servants that lived with Wu Yu and that the old man defended Wu Yu. Situl Jin decided to create trouble for Wu Yu. The story continued as Elder Muji took everyone to sky-grazing mountain of Bipo Mountain Range. This was the place Wu Yu would live and train herein as an immortal sect disciple. The Bipo Mountain Range was endless. Each core disciple would have their own mountain, and they would own all the resources of that mountain. Around 100 external disciples shared the same mountain. Within the vast mountain range, from foot to the peak, a palace had been built in the fair mist. Every external disciple had a palace for living, training, and accommodating guests. All the disciples that passed the immortal promotion examination would abide at Wangshan Peak from now on. Elder Muji brought them to the highest peak of sky-gazing mountain, Wangshan Peak. It pierced through the clouds, and all you could see was endless clouds. Elder Muji then announced to the disciples that from now on, they will be the official disciples of the Heavenly Sword Sect. Elder Muji then began to read the ground rules and provided the disciples with the book The Basics of the Sword, which entails all the taboos and commandments of the Sword Sect. Besides this, a martial arts book and a sword manual were given out. Both were not useful to Wu Yu. Elder Muji's words gave the impulsive disciples some warning about the difficulties of their journey ahead. Elder Muji sent everyone away and asked Wu Yu to stay behind. Muji did not waste words. He walked to stand in front of Wu Yu. Firstly, he pulled out a jewel-encrusted box from an unknown place. Although the box was closed tightly, it still emitted fragrance. It was the spirit condensation pill. It is only effective after you have reached the 10th tier of the body refining realm. Elder Muji advised Wu Yu to not use it before reaching that tier. Next, a sword appeared in Muji's hands. It was a massive sword with the width of 3 fingers. On the hilt of the sword was written Demon Banisher. Wu Yu accepted the gifts. The spirit condensation pill was of no use to him at present, so he put it away. The other reward, Demon Banishing Blade, had a huge reputation. Even Wu Yu had heard of them when he was a prince, although he had not known that they came from Heavenly Sword Sect. To his past self, it was a mystical weapon. He had never thought that he would receive it just like that. While leaving, Elder Muji advised Wu Yu to treat these treasures properly and then went away. Wu Yu then chose a disciple's residence near the foot of the mountain. Within the residence, all was brand new. Anything that they could ask for was provided, with a quota of 10 external disciples. Within the residence, there was a huge, majestic immortal crane. From now on, it will belong to Wu Yu. Wu Yu decided to return to Yanli Mountain to beg a favor from Su Yanli to let Sun Wudou accompany him in his later years. Riding on his immortal crane, he was knocked by the turbulence high in the air. It was an amazing feeling, with the entire vastness of the immortal sect laid out on display before Wu Yu's eyes. Being an immortal sect official disciple was indeed different from being a servant. Wu Yu had come to his immortal crane. By right, he had to land in Su Yanli Crane Garden. The crane was a sentient beast. Although it could not speak, it understood human speech. With a long cry, it landed in Immortal Crane Garden. A servant hurried up to take care of Immortal Crane, but the servant was not smiling. Instead, his face was ashen, saying, "Do you? Something has happened." Wu Yu was rooted in silence. The servant lifted a shaking finger, pointing at the wooden house on the mountain. Wu Yu immediately had a bad feeling. Could something have happened to Sun Wudao? Wu Yu's expression was dark. He was panicking inside, and he rushed over with all the speed he could muster. He was praying, "Please let nothing be wrong." The door was opened, and there were many servants standing around the house. Wu Yu was shaken by this, his mind blank. When he entered the wooden hut, he saw a shriveled old man lying on the floor. His eyes were closed. Life had already left the corpse. Wu Yu's blood boiled, rushing to his brain. The veins in his eyes swelled, tinting his entire vision with blood. He rushed forward to pick up Sun Wudao's corpse. At this moment, all Wu Yu wanted to do was to cut these servants down where they stood. But turning back, he saw servants with their bodies and faces covered in blood. Their eyes were popping wide, trying to talk to Wu Yu. One of the servants told Wu Yu it was not their fault, it was Situ Jin's. "We met Situ Jin on the road and 3 others. It was they who caused Sun Wudao's death." Wu Yu's eyes were red. His chest was roiling like a volcano as he shouted at Situ Jin. The servant fell to his knees and told Wu Yu about the incident. One of the servants, Galin, asked them to stop. They laughed and not only cut his tongue, but also said that we were nothing but small fry in their eyes. It seemed that immortal sect disciples cannot kill each other or there would be great consequences. That was why they had acted with impunity. The servant was shaking in fear and crying out in a heap. Wu Yu knelt on the floor and gave a deep kowtow. He would not forget. All that he had gained today was of Sun Wudao's making. To him, Wudao was like a father. Pity that heaven did not give him the chance to repay his kindness. He would blame himself. In this matter, he was not at fault. It was Situ Jin, the person who because of jealousy would kill anyone. What he hated the most about the whole matter was that he had not slaughtered this Situ Jin earlier. Wu Yu's body was raging with bloodthirst, anger, and killing intent. Wu Yu then sat on his immortal crane and flew towards Heaven's Lament, the mountain where the sect gathered. On Heaven's Lament platform, everyone besides Situ Jin was afraid of the consequences. Situ Jin consoled them by saying, "What is there to be scared of? There are 4 of us, and Heavenly Sword sect prevents disciples from killing each other. If they do, they will be kicked out and even punished with death. What can he do to us?" Situ Jin gave a cold smile, as though he did not care. As Wu Yu reached Heaven's Limit, his entire body, his blood, flesh, and bones were currently blazing with a golden flame. His eyes were bloodshot, and there was a killing intent emanating from him. Wu Yu shouted out Situ Jin's name in fury, causing everyone to stop in their tracks. A moment later, the entire area fell into a commotion. This seemed to be a challenge. It was past noon, so the heat from the sun was piercing. When the rays of heat burned Wu Yu's skin, a golden light could be seen swirling from within him. Heaven's Limit platform had numerous sect disciples on it. All of them saw a youth who looked as though he was wretched in golden flames descending from the skies. Before the crane had landed, he had jumped off its back, slamming into the ground. Situ Jin, Wan Yuanyang, Hua Chanyu, and Liu Muxu walked out in front of Wu Yu. From afar, they could already see the killing intent from Wu Yu soaring into the clouds. Situ Jin rose up and arrogantly said to Wu Yu, "I was wondering who this was. It looks like it was the servant from Yanli Mountain. I heard that you had managed to enter the sect today. Why did you not go to celebrate? Instead, you chose to come and find me." Situ Jin walked over to Wu Yu. His face turned overcast as he replied, "Truthfully speaking, Wu Yu, I was the one who killed that old man. I did not like the way he looked. What can you even do? Do you dare to challenge me?" Situ Jin felt secure in his backing. Hua Chanyu, with a sinister smile, said Situ Jin's younger brother is a genius who had almost reached the great way of Tao. There is no one in the sect that would dare provoke Situ Jin. Everyone around started to laugh. Such a sight was quite normal. Wu Yu raised his demon banishing sword towards Situ Jin as he challenged him to a life and death duel. Later, he increased his speed as he lashed forward with killing intent. The disciples and servants watching the whole matter were quite shocked seeing Wu Yu rushing to challenge Situ Jin. Situ Jin's face changed in an instant. He drew out a treasured sword, a cold light glinting from its edge. It was clear that it was of a lower grade than the demon banishing blade. He waved his longsword and utilized his Situ family's middle grade technique. eternal frost-killing sword to retaliate. Sevu Jin used Chaling's sky-frozen earth move to counter Wu Yu. Sevu Jin was secretly prideful in his heart. He had originally planned to demonstrate dominance over Wu Yu, but right at this moment, his move was smashed apart. Wu Yu closed the distance. Using Tide Chopper, Wave Breaker exploded outwards in fury. Both hands clasped onto the demon banishing blade tightly as he extended his full strength, chopping downwards. His furious sword had collided with Situ Jin's eternal frost sword. Situ Jin's sword, upon colliding with the rampant demon banishing blade, had simply shattered. Numerous sword fragments embedded themselves into Situ Jin's body. One of them lacerated his lip, causing blood to flow endlessly. The demon banishing blade had been deflected slightly and was unable to chop Situ Jin. A single move forced him back and almost claimed his life. Wu Yu in front of him seemed like a demon god. His gaze was icy as he stabbed Situ Jin's chest with his sword. Situ Jin was currently rolling on the ground, screaming in pain. No one had thought that Wu Yu possessed this courage. He truly wanted to kill Situ Jin. Wang Yayang and their friends' minds were in turmoil. Wu Yu was truly furious. It had far surpassed their expectations. Regardless, three of them rushed forward and attempted to block Wu Yu. Wu Yu's eyes blazed with golden light as he warned them to stay away, but they are confident in their skills at Wu Yu. As their swords clashed, Situ Jin, who was still screaming in pain, was crawling away, leaving behind a trail of blood and trying to call his elder brother Situ Kang. There was a cry of fear. A shadow fell by Situ Jin's side. The entire body dyed with blood. Situ Jin was so frightened, he was trembling from head to toe. The one that fell beside him was the regal lady, Liu Muxu. She had died with her eyes wide open. A moment later, the entire heaven's lament burst into riot. The situation had escalated. Perhaps it was just that Situ Jin's character was so terrible that no one from within the group of disciples around them chose to help him. Just as Situ Jin looked at Liu Muxu's body and was shivering, yet another body fell by his side. The person that had fallen on him was staring at him with widened eyes. This was the beauty, Hua Kanyu, who he had almost managed to take for his own, yet the same fate has befallen her just like Liu Muxu. Situ Jin had forgotten the pain he was afflicted with. He only felt immense terror. Yet the thing was that even if he regretted his actions, it was too late. Suddenly, another body fell beside him. It was Wang Yayang. He stared at Situ Jin with the most venomous glare he could muster before drawing his last breath. Situ Jin saw the blood-stained sword-wielding Wu Yu. Both his eyes were emitting golden light, and they penetrated Situ Jin's very spirit. Wu Yu told Situ Jin to be ready. It's his turn now as he walked towards Situ Jin. That sort of abject terror and pain was unthinkable. When Wu Yu was right in front of him, Situ Jin was so frightened he continued to crawl away and even peed his pants. Right at this moment, a voice shouted out and a cold light flew toward Wu Yu. Just as Wu Yu was about to deal the death blow, he was stopped. Situ Jin was just too lucky. He had been saved yet again. The one that appeared in front of Wu Yu's eyes was Situ Kang. He was large in build and looked quite familiar to Situ Jin. However, he did not have an arrogant look on his face. He wore a set of fitting armor and looked very much like a high-ranking military officer. Situ Jin screamed with ear-splitting loudness to tell his brother to kill Wu Yu. His older brother was already at the 7th-tier body refining realm. Situ Kang arrogantly spoke, "Wu Yu, your actions have killed fellow disciples. In the place of the sect, I will sentence you to death." Situ Kang withdrew a broadsword that looked extremely tyrannical. Wu Yu could differentiate the grudges he had and hence replied calmly, telling Situ Kang he had no grudges or grievances with him, he should leave. Situ Kang gave a cold smile and replied, "Don't get me wrong, I am not here to stop you but to kill you." Situ Kang charged forward, unleashing his sword. Wu Yu had no other choice. Before the eyes of everyone, he gripped the demon banishing blade and rushed forward. With the demon banishing blade, he was able to display strength with the whale slaying technique on a whole different level. Both their weapons clashed. A gust of chilly air splashed from Situ Kang's sword. His sword attacks were imbued with cold energy. The attack was extremely dangerous and was countless times stronger. In a single exchange, Wu Yu was knocked back, flying over 10 steps, almost dropping his demon banishing blade. From the side, Situ Jin started mumbling to slaughter Wu Yu and turn him into mincemeat. Situ Jin would eternally remember this grudge. If he did not die today, He would ensure that Wu Yu would live a life of regret. Wu Yu, with his whale-slaying technique, clashed against Situl Kang with his eternal frost-killing technique several times, ultimately pushing Wu Yu back. Situl Kang's face was cold as he rushed forward with mysterious footwork. He raised his broadsword as he prepared to deliver a death blow. Wu Yu was trapped within the tiers of eternal ice, and it was difficult to retaliate. Just then, Situl Kang burst outwards and rushed at him with the intent to kill. Wu Yu blocked his strike once again, but his weapon was smashed away, and the demon banishing baldate was knocked flying. Situl Jin scrambled to his feet, his face glaring viciously, and evilly told his brother to leave Wu Yu to him, so that he can torture him. He further made fun of Wu Yu, telling him to just die full of regrets who cannot even take his revenge. Situl Jin laughed raucously. Wu Yu was not content dying like this. He had just started his path of immortals. The scorching sun continued to sear the ground. Wu Yu's entire body emitted flames. He was not scared of Situl Kang. This was his self-confidence. At this point, Wu Yu opened his arms, bathing his entire body in the rays of the sun. His entire body seemed to become alight with a golden flame. He raised his head, his golden eyes staring at Situl Kang and Situl Jin. He decided to undergo blood-changing right in the midst of battle to activate the golden battle body. All of the blood in his body began to burn with a golden flame. All of his body began to transform under the scorching true fire of the sun. Gradually, the blood throughout his body began to turn a gold color. As Wu Yu underwent the heaven-defying blood-changing process, the surrounding disciples were shocked and dumbfounded. All of their minds were blank. They could only focus on Wu Yu. Situl Kang's expression finally had a minute change, but he did not hesitate. Instead, he staked his life as he thrust toward Wu Yu's throat. The heaven-defying blood-changing had completed. Wu Yu had properly broken through the 5th tier of the body-refining realm. He had finally returned to the tier he was at when he was still a prince. Right at that critical moment, his eyes opened as the killing blow was about to land on him. Wu Yu let out a cold smile and reacted quickly. He reached out his hand and grasped the long sword with his bare hands. With a sound, the sword is tightly held in a death grip. Yet, no matter how Situl Kang struggled, he was unable to make the sword budge. It was only at this time that Situl Kang's expression changed immensely. He could feel a ferocious and horrifying strength coming from within Wu Yu's body. It completely suppressed him. At this point in time, Situl Kang was already shocked. He could only rely on his genius brother, Situl Minglang, so he desperately asked Situl Jin to call him. However, his voice was cut off midway. Wu Yu used his other free hand to form a fist and pummeled Situl Kang right in his chest. An explosive reverberated as Situl Kang's armor was smashed into pieces. He spat out blood and crumpled onto the ground. His viscera had been completely shattered. The blood that flowed out was all black. Situl Jin's face was pale as he dropped onto the floor. The battleground had become eerily quiet. All the disciples began to retreat. The golden light that reads Wu Yu that changed to red blood color would inevitably become a nightmare for some. Wu Yu clenched his fists as he moved forward to Situl Jin and told him to raise his head. Situl Jin tried to ask for forgiveness. Wu Yu's face turned grim. Killing 4 individuals had only caused some of the hate within him to dissipate. All that was left was Situl Jin, and he hated him the most. Situl Jin spoke with great difficulty, trying to tell him about his younger brother Situl Minglang. Both his eyes were full of bloody tears. It was a pity that he only understood the meaning of regret at this point. Wu Yu got angry seeing his arrogance. His eyes blazed with golden light, and with a swift fist technique, he gathered all of his strength in his hand and punched Situl Jin in his guts. From the impact of the punch, Situl Jin flew far away. Wu Yu turned over to pick up his demon banishing blade to behead Situl Jin. To him, this conviction of revenge allowed his own spirit to ascend, to release the shackles of the mind. He realized the immortal path to be cruel. In order to achieve greater heights, one needs to battle. They had to wage war against heaven, earth, humans, and demons. Only the strong would obtain the Tao. With the death of Situl Jin, the fury in Wu Yu's heart completely subsided. He stood on top of the heaven lament platform, no longer emanating any light. All of the sect disciples were looking at him. As Situl Jin's head rolled away, there was a man who emerged out of the immortal mist far away. He was accompanied by several youths. As they rushed over, what they rode was not an immortal crane but a huge white rock. One of them was a 13-year-old genius, Situl Minglang, on the 10th tier body refining realm. He was not tall and had delicate facial features like that of a female. He was surrounded by a group of core disciples. Just as they rushed over, they saw the scene of Wu Yu decapitating Setu Jin and executing Situ Kang. The group of youth descended from the top of the rock. All of them were like Su Yanli. They all possessed the cultivation of a heavenly immortal. Situ Minglang stared at Wu Yu. In that instant, Wu Yu felt a fatal coldness. He was immediately plunged into a freezing world. Situ Minglang walked over, pace by pace, and asked the boy about his name. Wu Yu stood straight as he told him his name. He would not be cowed by this frost. Situ Minglang's eyes swirled with anger. As he realized that Wu Yu slaughtered his two elder brothers, he decided to torture Wu Yu before killing him. Wu Yu did not say anything. Situ Minglang inclined his head questioningly towards the core disciples as he asked them for permission to kill Wu Yu. These core disciples were of very high status. They were probably sect protectors' disciples. One of them coldly said to Situ Minglang to not worry and deal with Wu Yu however he wished. Clearly, to Situ Minglang, killing him on the spot was not hateful enough. Situ Minglang thanked the disciples and walked towards Wu Yu. As he approached Wu Yu, a layer of frost covered his hand, and then he released a gust of cold energy. It was like a savage tiger in the frost, and Wu Yu was a rabbit in front of it. Suddenly, the ice swirled and danced, the shards cutting him. Flecks of blood and scars appeared on his skin. Wu Yu had no idea. All he knew was that he had been taking revenge for some Wudo and was not wrong. As for how Situ Minglang would torture him, he could not imagine it. All he knew was that as long as he lived, there was a chance. Just as Situ Minglang was about to grab him and crush him at will, a long-skirted woman floated past Wu Yu's eyes. It was Su Yanli. Wu Yu was actually a little moved, seeing Su Yanli saving him again. Seeing Su Yanli's arrival, Situ Minglang let all his pressure dissipate. Situ Minglang asked Su Yanli to stay aside, as he wanted to finish Wu Yu off for killing his elder brothers. Wu Yu belongs to my Yanli peak. No one can take him away. Situ Minglang had not imagined that Su Yanli would actually protect a servant who had just entered the immortal sect. Even his cold face began to show signs of anger now. He stated according to sect rules for killing 5 external disciples, including my brother. He should be punished, and then asked Su Yanli if she is trying to rebel against the sect's rules. Su Yanli replied, Situ Minglang, you don't have the right to enforce sect rules, only the elders and leaders can do it. Situ Minglang was roused now. His anger was terrible to behold. Su Yanli was right. He did not have the right to enforce the sect's rules. The protector's disciples came up one by one and started criticizing Su Yanli to stay away from this issue, and as Wu Yu has caused such a calamity, even killing Situ Minglang's brothers, and finally told her to consider it as giving face and giving Wu Yu to Minglan to settle this issue. To them, Su Yanli's actions now were illogical. Wu Yu was just an insignificant disciple in their eyes, but perhaps she had set herself against them precisely because they were affiliated with the sect leader and sect protector. Su Yanli informed that sect leader is already being informed of the current situation. He will arrive shortly. These words stunned them. Sect leader Feng Suyo was the foremost person in the Heavenly Sword sect. He was a Jindan immortal of legends. Suddenly, a golden beam of light descended from the skies, and a huge golden sword floated in the air, pierced through the clouds. On the huge golden sword was a black-haired middle-aged man. Both of his hands were raised, and his aura filled the heavens. Immediately, everyone knelt on the ground. The sect leader's voice echoed in the space as he informed everyone that he know and understand all that transpired here today. Situ Minglang said composedly to the sect leader to let him handle Wu Yu, as he has killed 5 sect disciples and violated the rules. Sect leader Feng Suyo was unperturbed by Situ Minglang, saying, the Situ Jin group has murdered a 100-year-old man. They had already lost the bearing of a martial cultivator. They were unfit to be disciples in Heavenly Sword sect. Their deaths are not regretted. Situ Kang helped the disgraced, and he did not die innocent either. He further said that disciples of the Heavenly Sword sect practice the righteous path in immortal Tao. Situ Minglang had not thought that such a judgment would be passed. He was stunned. Situ Minglang knew if this continued, he would have no hold on Wu Yu. He tried to speak, but this objection stuck in his throat and was not voiced under the suppression of the sect leader. Feng Shuya further said that, as Wu Yu had killed 5 people in succession, although those 5 were wrong, Wu Yu's methods were overboard. He then sentenced Wu Yu to be sealed for a year to reflect on his actions and correct his behavior. To Wu Yu, all of this was more than he could process. Situ Jin and the rest, their deaths were not worth regret. And for himself, sealed for a year, 1 year in jail, although it was a punishment, in truth, it was for his protection. He was deeply shaken and grateful. Situ Minglang, in a fit of anger, fought the pressure of the sect leader's power and bit his words, telling the sect leader, how could Wu Yu be punished so lightly after killing 5 people? In the air, the Jindan Immortal looked at him and threw his words back at him, telling him how he could become a Jindan Immortal. He sides with evil. Each word of Feng Shuya cut deep into Situ Minglang's heart like a sword. Situ Minglang's face turned to Wu Yu as his eyes shimmered with the light of hate and told Wu Yu to enjoy his life for a year. Wu Yu was still in the joy that Feng Shuya had brought, but hearing Minglang's voice, he mildly replied to him that he will not be a match for him in a year. The story continued as Wu Yu requested the sect leader for a favor, and Feng Shuya allowed him to speak. Wu Yu told him, Sun Wudou is like a father to me. I want to bury him and stand his stand watch. Please allow me to stay for 7 days. Feng Shuya permitted it. Just like that, Wu Yu returned to Yanli Mountain with Su Yanli, under the murderous states of Situ Minglang and the rest. In the clouds, on the back of Immortal Crane, Su Yanli was whipped by turbulence as Wu Yu called her. Su Yanli turned to look at him. Wu Yu thanked her from his heart. Volumes of gratitude were condensed in those 2 words. She reminded Wu Yu of her sister Princess Wu Wu. Su Yanli exhorted and replied to Wu Yu, no need, but you must strive hard. Otherwise, I won't be able to protect your life in a year's time. Situ Minglang will not let you go. His future is too bright, but Wu Yu was confident in himself. So calmly, I will remember your advice and will strive hard to reach greater heights in a year's time. To Wu Yu, it was already heaven's intervention that had allowed him to live today, let alone be given a year. He was not afraid. He had confidence in himself to walk his path well. Upon returning to Yanli Mountain, Wu Yu buried Sun Wudou at the exact spot where Sun Wudou had once helped Wu Yu at. On the grave written, here lies Sun Wudou. Although the difference in their age was huge, Wu Yu still looked upon him as a father. Wu Yu knelt for 7 days and 7 nights. After Wu Yu left, Sun Wudou's grave shimmered with golden light. A golden hair floated out from the grave. It was not human hair, more like a beast's. The hair flew higher and higher until it was lost in the darkness. It seemed like a vague impression of a wrinkled, smiling face appeared. The smiling face on the grave gradually faded, until it was pitch black after saying, in this world, there are only you and me left of his legacy. The next day on Reflection Peak, inside the tower, Wu Yu was completely sealed with chains. The rune was 10 feet long. There was not enough space to stand. The Jindan Immortal and Su Yanli stood outside the room. Sect leader Feng Shuya spoke to Wu Yu saying, in a year's time, if you can beat Situ Minglang, I will accept you as my 5th disciple. Even if you have not condensed your Kai. Wu Yu was reeling. He was so moved. Back then, he had prematurely called him master. Who would have thought that his dream would come true today? Su Yanli smiled slightly and told Wu Yu to see him in a year. Su Yanli was ranked 4th in sect leader's disciple, so Wu Yu was happy to become the 5th one. The door of the sealed room shut. After leaving Wu Yu, Feng Shuya brought Su Yanli along with him and said from the front, Yanli, you were right. The transformation that Wu Yu gained was even better than we had imagined. But his nature is not bad. I am willing to be his guide and shelter him. Furthermore, he takes relationships seriously, indeed a good man. Su Yanli said in a low voice to his master, Master, you must be feeling pressure as the disciples of Sect Protector in these years are getting stronger and stronger. Feng Shuya gave a cold smile. That woman, I know not where she comes from, but she is not worthy of my attention yet. Some days later, on heaven's lament clouds raced across the sky, and the ice stretched out for 1,000 li. A servant's voice rang out in the skies saying someone succeeded in condensing their qi, and they further said, it must be Situ Minglang who has ascended. Immediately, the Baipo mountain range was in an uproar. Someone important had descended on heaven's lament. It was a woman dressed in blue. She was the Sect Protector, Lan Hui, and also a Jindan Immortal. The Sect Protector's voice rang through the Baipo mountain range, announcing and telling Situ Minglang, from this day forth, you are my 5th disciple. Minglang thanked her. On heaven's lament, Situ Minglang had awaited this moment for too long. Seeing the Sect Protector supporting him, his eyes burned thinking about the day when he will be able to take revenge on Wu Yu. Each year on August 15th, the Dongyu Wu Kingdom holds a celebration for their ancestors. Capital Wu was still as majestic as ever. On this day, it was livelier than ever. In front of the ancestral plaques, the new Dongyu Wu Emperor Yuan Hao, as well as Empress Dowager Yuan Xi, and other influential figures made an appearance. Yuan Hao was in a dragon robe. His eyes shone with ambition and hunger. Empress Dowager was even more striking, and not far behind was Princess Wu Wu, whose good name was known far and wide. Thousands of commoners looked on in admiration and respect at these noble figures. Emperor Yuan Hao was offering incense to the royal ancestors and spoke up, "Thanks to the heavenly emperor, thanks to the martyrs of our dynasty." Today, Yuan Hao thanks the ancestors, and may the Dongyu Wu Kingdom live forever. Many commoners hailed praise. One of them said, "So this is Emperor Yuan Hao. He really looks impressive." In the corner, a man in tattered clothes gave a cold laugh saying, "This is called impressive. Looks like a little wuss. You have never seen Prince Wu Yu. That is a real hero, one who raised the country. This Yuan Hao is not even worth one of his hairs. Back, during the chaos, Wu Yu slayed all the enemies. And this Yuan Hao does not even dare to kill a chicken." From the side, a matron had heard his mutterings and said, "You dare to say something like this? That's blasphemous." The tattered man replied, "So what if I dare to speak up? Yuan Hao is trash, and the Empress Dowager, wherever she emerged from, she is a cheap woman." Obviously, they set up Prince Wu Yu along with immoral Hao Tian to take over the kingdom. What is the commotion? Yuan Xi's painted red mouth was set with discontent. The years had not yet left any marks on her body. A servant rushed over and said, "Empress, someone is causing a fuss, and Prince Wu Yu was mentioned." She smiled coldly, saying, "Take him and dismember him with 5 horses and announce to the kingdom, whoever mentions Prince Wu Yu again will have their family line erased." The servant desperately spoke up, saying, "Empress, today is a festival. Will such bloodshed not anger the ancestors?" Yuan Xi laughed lightly and ordered him to take them out of the capital and then dismember them. At this moment, Emperor Yuan Hao had finished giving thanks to the ancestors and walked over. After settling down, he spoke up saying, "Sister Wu Wu, do you know in the eastern island, a bunch of people have emerged to unite all islands and establish a nation?" Wu Wu replied saying, "I have heard about it. They are a bunch of thieves and that is all." Yuan Hao smiled slightly, saying, "Don't say that. Since they have established a nation, then they are with us and we need their aid to expand our nations. They are willing to form an alliance with us." Princess Wu Wu replied, "It is a national affair and does not concern me, so if His Highness need not inform me of this." Empress Dowager laughed again, saying, "It does concern you. Yuan Hao said the East Nation Emperor wishes to take you as his wife and unite 2 nations through marriage." Princess Wu Wu, upon hearing it, said in a frosty tone, "That murderous king, thug, who will stop at no evil." Yuan said, while smiling, "Exactly. It is said the East Nation Emperor is strong in the martial way." He thought that Princess Wu Wu had been cowed. At this moment, Princess Wu Wu smiled and said, "Very good. Marry my corpse to this evil king to make your alliance." She stared at Yuan Hao and said, "Alliances with tigers and wolves will be the downfall of the nation. Yuan Hao, you are a failure as an emperor." Having said that, Princess Wu Wu rose and left without a backward glance. Yuan Hao trembled with fury. He raged and said, "That wench cannot even see the situation. I will make her pay for it." But Yuan Xi, while consoling Yuan Hao, said, "Don't worry, I have many ways to make that stubborn marriage docile." Yuan Hao gave a cold smile, agreeing with her mother. In the Heavenly Sword sect, the Reflection Peak's sealed room was completely sealed. One ate, drank, and excreted all within the place. A year's time did not daunt Wu Yu, because to him, it was a time when no one could disturb him. He could concentrate on cultivating, and it was a chance for him to charge to an even higher level. This year, he had to expand his horizons and compose his heart. Wu Yu was sitting in a lotus position and cultivating diligently over many days to master Invincible Vajra Body's 6th tier. The Invincible Vajra Body's 6th tier is called Full Body Golden Crystal Meridians. Once mastered, the entire body of meridians will be torn apart. The body will become like an expansive starry sky. The meridians will be like the stars but burn like the sun. The road of martial cultivation was one of persistence in the face of dryness. And in this sealed room, Wu Yu adhered to the lore of full-body golden crystal meridians and evoked the power of the ground and fire, and then through them. They became golden crystal meridians and heated his body until it was as hot as a meteor. A body had hundreds of meridian points. They were numerous, and the fire from the ground burned inside his body. It was even more excruciating than normal fires, and only those with the strongest wills could change the entire body's meridian points to golden crystal. The guard in the sealed room would often hear anguished wails that were painful to hear. Even deep in the night, there were moans akin to wild beasts. All of this was Wu Yu burning the 100 meridian points on his body. Day after day passed, and the sealed room often shone with firelight. After 130 days, Wu Yu finally managed to break open all the meridian points in his body. It was the first time he had achieved the opening meridian's tier. At that moment, there were hundreds of meridian points all over his body, which shone like the sun in the darkness. They were dense and, although small, shone intensively. The entire steel room glowed red from the heart, especially those eyes. On his back, the Savastika symbol became even more scorched. In the dimness, he howled like a trapped monkey. He clenched his fists and the prison shook. Wu Yu talked to himself, saying, "This invincible Vajra body has flamed my heart. In my imagination, I am actually an enraged ape, beating down everything in my way." For any normal practitioner, they would have a strength of 100 warhorses at the 6th tier of the body refining realm, but Wu Yu had far surpassed them and possessed strength equal to 800 warhorses. Now even the 8th tier body refining realm is no match for him. At his present level, it was impossible not to get excited given his age. But as he thought of Situl Lang, who had achieved spirit ascension and heavenly immortal Hao Tin from capital Wu, he began to calm down. He knew that there was still a long way to go. Wu Yu shifted his focus toward Invincible Vajra's body's 7th tier, visualizing the inner ape. The 7th tier of mortal body refining is spirit congealing. It allows one's soul to grow and unifies the heart and mind. It completely manipulated one's body to elevate battle power. Wu Yu was not prepared to rest. At this point, Wu Yu realized that the Invincible Vajra body was indeed connected to a monkey. He follows the inner ape that the Invincible Vajra body described. Through his own sketches and imagination, he created the form of a monkey in his mind. As he imagined the ape, some dominating, disdainful words pierced through the mental world of Wu Yu. The words were, "I am the heavenly domain's great sage, fated one, accept my legacy, and defy the heavens, and destroy all that stand in your way." These words battered him savagely. At the same time, the inner ape began to materialize in his heart. Wu Yu's spirit completely suppressed this inner ape. Just thinking about it made his head ache to the point it felt like splitting. Clearly, this level of soul master could not endure it. He had to visualize it again and again, train and form his spirit. The elder guarding the sealed room again heard the painful cry of Wu Yu, which would not cease. He thought to himself, "This Wu Yu is a real lunatic. Cultivate if you want, but must you weep and howl like a demon?" In an instant, more than 200 days had passed. At this time, the inner ape had already been fully formed. Although one could not see it or feel it, in Wu Yu's heart, his soul had already taken on the form of the inner ape. For ordinary people who reach the 7th tier of the body refining realm have the strength of 500 warhorses, but Wu Yu can bring out the strength of 1,500 warhorses. Normally, one has about 1,000 warhorses worth of power at the 9th tier, and the martial way's 10th tier has 2,000 warhorses worth of power. That means Wu Yu is now roughly equal to Situl Lang. While in the capital Wu, Wu Yu had a goal to reach the 10th tier of the martial way, to have 2,000 warhorses worth of power. Who would have thought that in a year, he had achieved it all? And just like that, a year of sealing passed. On the day that the doors of the sealed room were opened, it was the first time in a year that Wu Yu basked in the sunshine. There was an otherworldly feel to it. In the sky, the clouds rolled on lazily. The fairy mist drifted slowly, with a breeze sweeping and rustling the leaves in the immortal forest. All of this caught Wu Yu's eyes immediately. Just as he walked out, he saw Su Yanli. Wu Yu had not thought that she would find time amidst her busy schedule to wait and receive him. In his heart, he was happy and surprised. Coming down from her crane, Su Yanli gave a smile as she congratulated Wu Yu for finishing his punishment. In the air, she pressed a golden-edged secret manual into Wu Yu's hands, saying, "This is a supreme great martial art that Sect Master has given you. You can practice it when you have time. It has similarities to the sword work you used previously, but is much stronger." Wu Yu was overjoyed. Presently, the whale-slaying sword of the eastern seas was already insufficient for him to evoke his power. He was exactly lacking in technique, and he had not expected Feng Shuya to already foresee that. The manual contains a technique called Golden Inferno Dragon Slayer Art. The 5 large words were emblazoned on the manual, encircled by a mystical dragon. Wu Yu was excited about getting the technique. He quickly thanked Su Yanli and asked her to thank Sect Master for him. Su Yanli handed over the sword manual and while turning away told Wu Yu, "I look forward to the day you become my junior brother." She rode her immortal crane and advised Wu Yu to practice hard to counter Situl Minglang in the future as he had already reached the spirit condensing realm. As she rode her immortal crane away, her figure, alluring as an immortal in a picture, vanished in the clouds. Wu Yu decided to seclude himself from harsh training to master this technique to counter the future challenges he will be facing. But Wu Yu did not care, nor was he afraid. Later, he rode his immortal crane, flying over the Baipo mountain range until he reached Yanling Mountain. He stopped in front of Sun Wudo's grave to spend some time with Wudo. The crescent moon's dim light filtered down. There was a ghostly feel all around. Wu Yu stood up and took out the Golden Inferno Slayer art that Su Yanli had given him and seriously began to train it. This way, Sun Wudo could personally see his progress. Whale Slaying Sword is only a middle grade art. Its moves are simple and shallow. It is not enough to handle my power, and this Golden Inferno Dragon Slayer art is a more powerful, supreme grade martial art. Bearing this in mind, he began to study even more seriously. Breathfully pursuing it, he discovered that it was a very good fit for him. Wu Yu was engrossed in this martial art. As he was deeply engrossed in the learning, he forgot where he was. He realized that it was the perfect complement for his invincible Vajra body. The more he read and trained, the more shaken Wu Yu was. He was more and more immersed. Being paired with a martial art that seemed to be made for his existence, his cultivation and mastery rate were uncommonly quick. Back in the capital Wu Yu had to spend a year learning Whale Slaying Sword. But now in just a night, there were already results. After reaching some attainment in Golden Inferno Dragon Slayer art, he stowed away and saw a young woman in green coming towards him. It was King Mang. After not meeting for a year, she had bloomed beautifully. She stood in front of Wu Yu, happy and indignant, saying, "When we were first initiated, you promised to be my friend, and in the blink of an eye, you were imprisoned for a year, abandoning me. I wanted the opportunity to defeat you, but I could not find you." Wu Yu grimaced, saying, "This is unprecedented. I don't want it." At this moment, some disciples came along. King Mang stared at Wu Yu. They had heard that King Mang wanted to challenge Wu Yu, and they had gathered to watch the commotion. King Mang suddenly unsheathed her longsword, staring at him with big eyes and telling him, "You must not run today. You must exchange blows with me." Wu Yu replied, "It's not good to pull swords when we just met, right? Many people make little of you. You were someone who beat me before. How could you be taken lightly?" King Mang was worked up. As she said this, she immediately moved. Wu Yu understood why she was in such a hurry. She was not trying to better herself, but trying to get his back for him. She wanted to show his true ability so that those who mocked him would get a good look. Wu Yu took his stance to exchange blows with her. King Mang charged forward with her sword in her right hand. Many of the nearby disciples favored the younger King Mang, so they started mumbling that Wu Yu lost to her. The news of Wu Yu's release had spread through the Heavenly Sword sect like wildfire. As King Mang charged at Wu Yu, she felt a killing intent alerted at Wu Yu, who had been engrossed in fighting. As she noticed, a girl with a covered face charged at Wu Yu from behind his back with the intention of killing him. King Mang instantly charged forward to block her sword strike from reaching Wu Yu. While in the scuffle, Wu Yu also noticed the assassin girl and jumped to the side. The assassin girl again attacked King Mang with a critical strike, dealing a heavy blow, which led to King Mang being thrown back in the air. King Mang also lost grip of her sword, which led to her being defenseless. The assassin girl did not wait for more and instantly rushed forward to finish King Mang, who blocked her from killing Wu Yu. Her sword was covered with a frost aura as charged at King Mang. The disciples that followed King Mang to witness the fight between Wu Yu and her were terrified to the depths of their souls. As the woman reached King Mang, in the midst of chaos, Wu Yu instantly interfered, blocking her strike. Both of their swords clashed, their energy colliding with each other. The sword strike was too heavy for Wu Yu to bear, resulting in Wu Yu being pushed back 10 meters. After countering her strike, Wu Yu realized the assassin was extremely strong compared to him. She laughed at Wu Yu to be able to counter her attack, Before assassinating him, she thought it would be easy to kill a servant who just became an external disciple a year ago. She also intended to steal a spirit-condensing pill after killing Wu Yu to condense her chi. The disciples besides King Mang were amazed by witnessing the strength displayed by Wu Yu. Their eyes were wide open. Before, there had been much gossip revolving around that Wu Yu must have used some cheap tricks to win on the immortal promotion platform, and someone must have helped him to kill the 5 strong external disciples. But now they were clear about the reality. Wu Yu blocked the assassin's path and told King Mang to leave here quickly, as he intended to tackle her alone. King Mang knew that both of them were not a match for the assassin girl, as she had reached the 10th tier of the body refining realm, so she decided to look for Su Yanli to help Wu Yu out of this critical situation. The assassin's face was masked in black cloth. From the features, one could tell that she was a real beauty. Wu Yu spoke up. I thought Situl Minglang would come personally, but he sent you. Although Wu Yu was slightly entranced, he held fast. He knew that the more seductive these beauties were, the more fatal they were. The assassin said, "You only have 10 breaths of time left before you die, and you are trying to save others in this situation." In the woman's hand was a black short sword. Wu Yu could sense from her aura and stance that she far surpassed him in power. Just as she spoke, she immediately attacked. The black short sword was like a viper's tongue in the black night. Each move was a cold and cruel hiss of death. This girl was a natural-born killer, specializing in speed and deadliness. The leaves blew wildly around. In the air, a beam of black energy sped over, reaching Wu Yu in an instant. It was a fatal attack. His sword swept out to connect with the opponent's short sword, but that prodigious power knocked Wu Yu back. He crashed heavily into a tree and rolled to the floor, covered in dust. It looked bleak. In the black night, the woman's attacks came again and again, flashing out ceaselessly. They were polished and deadly attacks. This was indeed a difficult challenge for Wu Yu. He cannot let this suppression continue, otherwise, it will be fatal for him. Wu Yu dodged a few times consecutively. It was very risky. The opponent was cold-blooded and frightening. These few times, Wu Yu's eyes and throat had barely avoided being pierced. Under such an onslaught, he was hard-pressed to bring forth many of his moves. After 3 more breaths, the opponent was very arrogant. That cold voice seemed to come at him from all directions. At this moment, her speed quickened until he could not ascertain where she was. If this continued, he would be dead without a doubt. In his mental world, he sought the inner ape. That dominating monkey king sat firmly in the center of his mind, stabilizing it. When his energy waned until a maximum and actually began to compromise the opponent's attack, Wu Yu attacked. He had not acted until now, but the moment he did, he used the Golden Inferno Dragon Slayer art that he had just spent half the day practicing. Although it was just the first move, this was still the sword skill that Feng Suya personally created. The demon banishing blade swept out. Scorching, golden flames raged intensely, piercing the darkness with just one slash. It swept out horizontally. Just as the woman leaped in for the kill, Wu Yu's mind and body were one. The black short sword in the woman's hand had actually been sent flying by Wu Yu. She had been too confident, which was why such a mistake had happened. At this moment, she could only retreat. Her lithe body weaved and ducked through Wu Yu's slashes. The golden longsword flashed out, sending flames to illuminate the dark night. While the opponent was reeling from the surprise, Wu Yu found his chance. The opponent shrieked and tumbled on the floor. In truth, Wu Yu could have cleaved her apart, but thinking carefully, she had to be a disciple of the Heavenly Sword sect. It would be troubled no matter what. Therefore, he had turned his blade at the last moment, using the blade to score the enemy. "Get out. Next time, ask Situl Minglang to come himself," Wu Yu aggressively told her with blazing eyes. Wu Yu only thought to continue practicing the sword. The girl bit her lip with her eyes large. She was not satisfied, but she was unable to continue fighting. She crawled to her feet and retrieved her sword. She threw him a reproachful glance, saying resentfully, "How cruel of an attack. Do you not know how to cherish beauty with a soft hand? Get out!" Wu Yu stared at her. After defeating her, she was now pouty, with a more seductive look in her eyes. At this time, she turned away to leave, but her hand was retrieving a golden talisman out of his sight. The girl laughed loudly, turning back. She tore the golden flame talisman and hurled it at Wu Yu. Although it was a paper talisman, it flew like a secret weapon, exploding in front of Wu Yu's eyes. After the golden flame talisman exploded, a golden fireball the size of a palm blossom. In that instant, it smashed into Wu Yu's body. The surging flames coated Wu Yu's entire body. It incinerated his entire body, including his clothes. He was completely burnt in an instant. The girl's expression had changed. She was extremely pleased, screeching with laughter at the side. She had personally witnessed Wu Yu devoured by the flames. She could not be bothered to watch more. In her mind's eye, he was already ash. There was nothing more to see. She turned to leave while saying, "To have insulted Situl Minglang, you deserve this fate. The golden flame talisman is such a precious object, and it was wasted on you." Suddenly, the flame shot up and the area was lit with brilliant firelight. Then the fire disappeared too quickly. That was strange. The girl was shocked. She turned back to see a completely unharmed Wu Yu. He lifted his hands with power and aggressiveness that were more intimidating than before, with a raging fire in his eyes. The girl had witnessed the most illogical thing in the world, but she did not have much time to be surprised. A bolt of golden light flashed past. The iron-like fingers were locked in a death grip around her throat, lifting her body. The tender skin and flesh of her throat were scorched black in an instant. She had not at all expected to die, but now her life was within Wu Yu's hands. At such a moment, she thought quickly. She used all of her strength not to struggle, but to tear off her own clothes. She said as loudly as she could, "Wu, Wu Wai, from now on, I am yours. Do as you please with me, but don't kill me." Wu Yu stared at her aggressively and in a moment snapped her neck and threw her on the ground. The fire from the talisman had helped Wu Yu to reach Invincible Vajra Body's 8th tier, Agile Rock Body. Now he has reached the 8th tier of the Body Refining Realm. He could feel the colossal power in his body. Now he has power worth 3,000 warhorses. His heart was at peace. As the body of the girl burned down, Su Yanli came down from her immortal crane to help Wu Yu. She spoke to Wu Yu saying, "You really went through body rebirth. Although you are older than Situl Minglang, your progress this year is many times that of his." Wu Yu was still not clear, as after condensing one's ki, how much stronger would one be? So he asked Su Yanli if he could defeat Situl Minglang in his current form. Su Yanli shook her head saying, "Using warhorses as a gauge of power is the currency in the martial world. After condensing one's ki, one has entered immortal Dao and cannot go by the same measure anymore." However, Situl Minglang had only condensed his Kai. If you really wanted to count, he would have around 5,000 warhorses worth of power. Wu Yu thought to himself, "Seems like I have to ascend one more tier to be his opponent." Su Yanli further explained to Wu Yu, "The current matter related to the assassin has passed, and no one will pursue it. But Situl Minglang has not come to find you so far, not because he has forgotten his grudge, but because he is preparing to contest for the Immortal Kingdom Supervisor. After he succeeds, you will be in danger." The title of Immortal Kingdom Supervisor caught Wu Yu's interest. Wu Yu pursued the issue, and Su Yanli briefly described the role of the supervisor, as well as rewards. Su Yanli further explained that to be an immortal protector of the mortal kingdoms is probably the only chance to go out of the sect. This news was a bomb on Wu Yu. He thought to himself, Immortal Hao Tian must be an immortal supervisor who had served a bit longer. Wu Yu hurriedly asked, "Senior Sister Su, I would like to ask, is the Dongyu Wu Kingdom among these nations?" Su Yanli explained that including Dongyu Wu Kingdom, a total of 6 countries belonged to Heavenly Sword Sect's purview in this decade as per the contract. To Wu Yu, this was too important. This meant that Heavenly Immortal Hao Tian would soon return to his sect, and he could only meet him if he became an immortal protector of the Wu Kingdom. He hurriedly said, "Senior Sister Su, I want to become W Kingdom Supervisor." Su Yanli immediately shook her head and said, "Unfortunately, I believe that it is not possible. According to the rules, only those who have condensed their chi and are core disciples can become Immortal Kingdom Supervisor." Wu Yu was not concerned with these rules. He quickly explained his situation about being a crown prince and then asked again. Wu Yu knew that by relying on Su Yanli's connection, this task could be completed easily. Seeing how firm Wu Yu was about this and coupled with his immense animosity and desire for revenge, she replied, "The first point is Situl Minglang will also be part of the selection. If he were to learn that you were participating, he would use his connections to ensure that you will fight him. The second point is if you do become a supervisor when you arrive at the Wu Kingdom, the Zhanyuan Dao sect's representative will definitely provoke you." Su Yanli had already explained the pros and cons of his decision, and wanted him to make his decision carefully. However, regardless of the difficulties with his decision, returning to the Wu Kingdom was his dream. Wu Yu loudly said, "I have thought about it, and I will bear the consequences of my decision." Wu Yu's eyes blazed with a raging flame. After providing the information about Immortal Kingdom Supervisor test, Su Yanli rode her immortal crane and flew away. Wu Yu knew that he was not Situl Minglang's opponent, thus he made use of the time available to rush toward the 9th tier, the Immortal Transformation Realm. After cultivating it, one would obtain a godlike body akin to an immortal ape. Compared to immortal, its strength, speed, defensive prowess, and regenerative abilities were superior by far, with the caveat that it consumed strength. However, it was not simple. Wu Yu had pondered over it for quite a bit of time, but did not get to some point. He had a feeling that he was lacking something important. Frankly speaking, Wu Yu knew that he was not Situl Minglang's opponent, thus he had to make use of the time available to rush towards the 9th tier, Immortal Transformation Realm. On the next day, Wu Yu rode his immortal crane and flew to clouds, crossing over half the Baipo mountain range before finally arriving at Myriad Treasures Valley. Looking from above, Myriad Treasures Valley was full of bright lights and was bustling with life. Numerous treasures were being exchanged in this place every day. This was the place that the disciples most wished to visit. A few smaller stores had servants running them, while more important ones had core disciples in charge of them. The valley was too large. After exploring it for half a day, he had only covered just 1/10 of it. Yet, Wu Yu did not find any treasures that could help him in ascending to the 9th tier. Just as he decided to leave, he was still pondering over the immortal ape transformation. All of a sudden, an item placed on the floor on his left attracted his attention, as an external disciple was running that store. The fruit was emanating a faint fragrance and seemed to be a spiritual fruit. However, it did not seem to be of a particularly high grade. Yet what was striking was that this fruit looked very much like a monkey's head. It possessed a shape that looked like the fruit had eyes and a nose. Mysteriously, Wu Yu felt that he really needed this seemingly ordinary fruit. He felt that the fruit possessed a trace of something connected to apes, and ordinary individuals could not perceive it. Since this could grow the likeness of a monkey, it would definitely possess some mystery to it. Wu Yu sat down and pointed at the fruit, asking the seller, "What is this?" The seller replied saying, "It is a monkey head fruit. It's mostly used to temper the body. It can be used to increase the speed of regeneration of one's injuries and can even replenish flesh and blood. However, it had a much greater effect on monkeys and apes. In terms of price, it is not high. Just 15 kilograms of gold is enough." Wu Yu wanted to bring it back to take a closer look at the mysteries it holds. Just as Wu Yu was fishing for money and confirming the price with the seller once more, the disciple selling at the counter raised his head to look at Wu Yu and increased the price to 500 kilograms of gold. Wu Yu trembled, and the gold he counted out had almost fallen onto the floor. Compared to the previously quoted 15 kilograms of gold, the difference was just too large. He had not brought that much gold out to begin with. I did not hear it wrongly, did I? Is this not a monkey head fruit? It is worth at most 15 kilograms of gold. What do you mean by 500 kilograms? Wu Yu said in a displeased fashion. The disciple replied, "As I said, if it is you, it is 500 kilograms of gold for a fruit." The disciple was adamant. The way he looked at Wu Yu had a hint of enmity in it. Wu Yu immediately snapped. He felt that the other party was toying with him. Just as he was about to reason with him, after hearing the disciples gathered in the market, he realized that the seller is somehow affiliated with Situl Minglang. They are from the same peak. He immediately asked the seller about his connection with Situl Minglang. The disciple shuddered and said, "How did you know?" Wu Yu's gaze was blazing as he replied, "Of course, I would know, as only the disciples related to Minglang would not sell their things to him. The purported price was just to mess with him." Frankly speaking, Wu Yu really wanted this monkey head fruit. However, the opposing party coincidentally had a dispute with him. This was troublesome. The opponent was not daft and was unreasonable. He could tell Wu Yu needed that monkey head fruit. Therefore, Wu Yu thought to himself, "When this disciple leaves the market at night, I will forcefully snatch it from him." Wu Yu threw the monkey head fruit back on the stall and decided to go and keep a watch on the seller from a distance. But just as he was about to leave, Situl Minglang actually appeared in the market on that stall. He wanted to create trouble for Wu Yu, so he decided to purchase that fruit. The seller instantly picked up the monkey head fruit and offered it to Situl Minglang for free. After Situl Minglang took the monkey head fruit, he smirked coldly, turning his pink light eyes on Wu Yu, saying, "I hear you want this monkey head fruit." Situl Minglang raised the immortal fruit in his hand, looking at Wu Yu with a half-smile. Wu Yu turned towards Situl Minglang with blazing eyes and angrily agreed to his words. "Then I give it to you." This was a completely unexpected phrase coming from Situl Minglang. Wu Yu had not even comprehended it when the opponent suddenly flexed. He crushed the monkey head fruit into a pulp in front of everyone. He then flung it to the floor, saying to Wu Yu, "Take it, don't stand on ceremony." Situl Minglang took 2 steps backward, a thick smirk on his face. He gestured towards Wu Yu. He then crushed the pieces of monkey head fruit with his feet into the mud, where they mixed until they looked like the droppings of a beast. Wu Yu was startled at the behavior of Situl Minglang. This action had hushed the entire crowd. Situl Minglang was too cruel. He had not only destroyed what Wu Yu wanted, but also taunted him. At this moment, if Wu Yu did not attack or at least do something, then his aura would be completely suppressed. Everyone was very curious. What would Wu Yu do? Normally, unless he could defeat Situl Minglang, he would be completely played with, but at the moment, he was not an opponent of Situl Minglang. He could only bear this disgrace. Unexpected to everyone, Wu Yu gently extracted his fingers and unhurriedly walked up to Situl Minglang. From here, he could feel the immortal Dao's spiritual power emanating from his opponent. Wu Yu squatted down naturally, picking up the muddy mess from the ground. The disciples gathered in the market were shocked at his reaction and thought that Wu Yu is spineless. After wrapping it well within a piece of cloth, he stowed it away in his chest pocket. Throughout all this, he showed no expression, not even fear. Only after he had finished did he turn a mild smile on him, saying, "My thanks to junior brother Situl for his generosity. But this thing will be the greatest factor when you lose the battle. You will regret it. At that time, don't sniffle and cry." Having said that, Wu Yu smiled and flexed his own sunny aura, which clashed with Minglang's in a contest of opposites. After which, he could not be bothered to remain here. Even in front of Situl Minglang, he left without turning away. In truth, everyone had been on tenterhooks through this turn of events. They only began to ease up when Wu Yu had left, and the aggression began to fade from Situl Minglang. They started mumbling. Situl Minglang was clearly humiliating him, but he actually bowed his head to accept it. That is too spineless, but he has the courage to come close to his enemy. Although Wu Yu himself was very calm, others who had witnessed this felt he had willingly submitted to humiliation. Perhaps only Situl Minglang himself, the one who had done the humiliating, felt no sense of pleasure. On the contrary, the darkness in his heart grew further. He was conflicted inside. He felt like he should not be entangled with this wretched servant Wu Yu. As long as Wu Yu was dead, he could carry on pursuing his path. Sometime later, Wu Yu returned to his disciple's residence. He rushed back into practice room and completely sealed the practice room. Just then, a disciple came knocking on the door. As he entered the room, he provided Wu Yu with the immortal sect uniform that Su Yanlei had sent for him. Wu Yu was so engrossed in practice that he did not realize the disciple. Wu Yu picked up the pulp and placed it inside a furnace, which turned a pale gold color. He then extended his hands. Many meridians were on his arm, and under Wu Yu's control, his palm glowed red and golden flames sprung forth, roasting the monkey head fruit. In the dancing golden flames, the pulp was rapidly burned clean, becoming a mist that floats within the practice room, bringing wafts of fragrance. However, Wu Yu was completely absorbed in the fruit. There was a minute drop of blood that one would not notice unless one looked closely. The mystical drop of blood was like a live creature. Occasionally, it even transformed into the shape of a ferocious monkey. This should be the blood of an ape that became a demon. It must be very strong. Wu Yu was very excited. The odds of this happening were too improbable. He thought to himself, "I will use this drop of blood to cultivate the immortal ape transformation. If Situl Minglang found out that he has personally helped me in ascension, I wonder what his expression would be." After a long period of suppressing his wants, Wu Yu sunk into another deadly stage. Some days later, on the day of battle, the disciples of Beppo Mountain Range were waiting for the spectacle on the Immortals battle stage. It was said that Wu Yu and Situl Minglang had been arranged as the last battle. It was a cloudy day, with rolling clouds blowing in across the barren to the west. It was already afternoon. Today, the mountain that hosted the Immortals battle stage was majestic and imposing as could be. The Immortals battle stage was a huge coliseum. There were human heads everywhere, faces full of anticipation, waiting for the battles between the 12 core disciples. The chatter and discussion evaporated as the sect protector Lan Huai arrived. She emerged from the sky and finally landed above the crowd's heads, on the throne of gold and silver constructed from 10,000 swords. This was the esteemed throne of swords, which was the designated seat for the sect protector. Beside Lan Huai were many elders. One of them was Elder Muji today. The other elders, Lan Huai, included Setback, while Muji was the host of the Immortal Kingdom Supervisor test. The Immortal Kingdom Supervisor test was normally not as elaborate an event, but today Lan Huai had personally made an appearance, all because Situl Minglang was participating. All disciples were shocked at the appearance of sect protector Lan Huai. Within the crowd, a black-robed Situl Minglang was laughing and chatting with disciples. Situl Minglang's eyes had been secretly roaming, but he had not seen Wu Yu. He thought to himself, if it is as people say, he does intend to participate. He was merely playing for time, afraid that I would slaughter him. Situl Minglang laughed coldly to himself. Situl Minglang turned away as the crowd started to gather. At this moment, Elder Muji stood up from his seat, asking the time for the battle exchange is about to start. Are all 12 candidates present? The crowd looks about. Wu Yu was not here yet. Very quickly, many chose this answer. It was an answer that came with disdain. Wu Yu's absence affirmed the disciples' suspicions that he was afraid of being slaughtered by Situl Minglang. Elder Muji surveyed the crowd, finally locking onto Su Yanli. He spoke clearly. Miss Yanli, you are on good terms with Wu Yu. Go and invite him here to stop holding up the time. He naturally knew that Wu Yu would not be absent because he feared death. I understand Su Yanli was preparing to do so as well. This was a special day for Wu Yu. It was the final test that the sect leader had set for him, and it was impossible for him to be absent. No need. At this moment, a powerful voice rang out from the sky. There was an immortal crane floating in the sky. The crowd looked up. They got surprised as they noticed Wu Yu riding the crane to the immortal battle stage. He jumped down from the crane, slamming on the stage in front of Situl Minglang. His body was fully covered with golden flames, now that his agile rock body was cultivated. Under the setting sun, one could see just barely the golden veins and roiling blood. His golden bones were glowing, and his entire body was covered in golden crystal meridians. Instantly, numerous gazes turned to focus on Wu Yu. Everyone was in shock, witnessing the appearance of Wu Yu. They thought to themselves, due to the arrogance of Wu Yu, he will be slaughtered today at the hands of Situl Minglang. Mo Shishu, the third disciple of Feng Shuye, and Su Yanli looked at Wu Yu with anticipation. Their faces were glowing watching their future junior brother on stage. Mo Shishu suddenly turned serious and addressed Wu Yu gravely. Junior brother, don't disgrace my master. If I were you, as long as I survive on that stage, then all honor is saved. On the stage, Situl Minglang arrogantly spoke up. Wu Yu, that day you picked up trash I left on the ground. Do you remember your shame? Situl Minglang had waited for this chance to vent his hatred. It was unbearable. Situl Minglang, that day, I slaughtered your two brothers but walked away without anything happening to me. Do you remember how glum you were? Wu Yu's words were delivered calmly. Situl Minglang was too naive. Such pre-battle taunts were nothing to Wu Yu, who had been training on the battlefield for a long time. The moment he said it, all the composure that Situl Minglang had carefully built up was shattered, and only his raging anger was left. Situl Minglang seethed, and the disciples could feel his fearsome spiritual power. Situl Minglang really could not resist. This young demon stood before Wu Yu and recited a chant. In a trice, an immortal treasure appeared. It was a hardened spirit sword. A blue light flowed along the keen gleaming edge. When it clashed, the blue light spat out thunder and lightning that lingered on the blade, creating loud cracking sounds. When Situl Minglang held the blade, electricity coursed through his body. In an instant, his black hair flew wildly. He looked awe-inspiring. Wu Yu had heard that in the year Situl Minglang had secluded himself, he had not only succeeded in condensing his ki, but had also cultivated the art of lightning control. Situl Minglang suddenly raised his head. He stared at Wu Yu and charged without a word. He started chanting a Dao technique, heart-piercer lightning, while grasping his sword in one hand. Halfway through, he finished chanting, tapping the lightning rod blade. In that instant, it seemed like he had limited spiritual power, which manifested on the long sword. The electricity on the blade was amplified by 10 times. Situl Minglang used his dominating power to charge forward with lightning-quick footwork. He lunged straight for Wu Yu's heart. In comparison, Wu Yu was taller and was looking down on him. One who had condensed their chi could control ki. Dao techniques and immortal treasures combined to be a definite walkover, and the Heavenly Sword sect disciples could basically predict that this was a sure kill. Wu Yu's counter seemed effortless. He simply lifted his sword in both hands and swept it out. He loudly calls out, "Sweeping Golden Inferno." The Golden Inferno Dragon Slayer art that he had mastered recently was used. The sound was deafening, as though an avalanche had occurred. It rumbled everyone's eardrums and knocked the sense from their brains. In that instant, all they could see was Wu Yu's sword sweeping out, trailing embers. The incomparably aggressive blow landed on the lightning rod blade and immediately exploded with inhuman power. Situl Minglang and lightning rod blade were sent flying more than 300 feet. Situl Minglang flew. In the setting sun, the demon banishing blade gleamed, and the youth was glowing with golden light from his entire body. The picture left the entire immortal battle stage silent. Even a single pin drop could be heard clearly. Even Lan Huai's gaze wavered for a moment, and the look in her eyes started to change. Or perhaps now she started to understand why Feng Shuya had taken Wu Yu under his wing. The silence extended until Situl Minglang landed on the floor. He almost did not manage to execute a recovery roll. Such a scene was just too unexpected. It was true that the drop of blood from monkey head fruit had helped Wu Yu train day and night. He had entered the 9th tier, and now he has 5,000 warhorses worth of power, far surpassing Situl Minglang in terms of power alone. Of course, Wu Yu was not arrogant. Before, Situl Minglang had not treated him as an opponent, and now that he had tasted pain, he would enter a berserk state given his personality. As expected, Situl Minglang was chafing and he spat a mouthful of blood. Then he hefted his lightning rod blade. He raised his angry eyes to the sky and executed marvelous footwork. He shouted, "The power of the sky is boundless, and the immortals rule all. Lightning and thunder, hither to my blade." Instantly, the sky darkened and the debris flew. Wu Yu raised his head in shock. He could see that the clouds had already become inky black and the thunder is roaring out. And then he saw a coarse lightning snake slithering through the clouds. It bore the ultimate killing intent. Situl Minglang spoke, "The art of lightning control will leave you without even a corpse." As the weather changed, Situl Minglang's mouth curled in a cold smile. The lightning rod blade was already pointed at Wu Yu. A voice rang out, "Die." Situl Minglang laughed loudly within the crackling electricity. His longsword gathered the lightning. In the instant that he pointed it at Wu Yu, the sky rang with an explosion. As he lifted his head, an electric snake could be seen lunging out from the clouds. The brilliant light was frightening, and it was at a speed that could be dodged. It reached Wu Yu's head. True elite Dao techniques were being displayed here, and the crowd was stunned. Before Wu Yu's eyes, that explosive electric snake had already reached speeds that could not be sensed. The speed of his dodge was far from this electric snake's speed. In that split second, all he could do was block his head with the demon banishing blade. The lightning clashed with demon banishing blade. Just as everyone expected, the lightning was conducted through the blade to Wu Yu's body. There was an explosion and the lightning engulfed Wu Yu, wrecking his pristine body. Instantly, he was charred black and fell to the ground stiffly, knocking up a puff of dust. The crowd laughed, as expected, burnt to a crisp ha-ha. When they saw the fallen Wu Yu, the body still smoldering with green smoke, many sect disciples actually burst into laughter. Suddenly, a voice rang out, "Dao techniques are indeed powerful, but to fully utilize them requires time. That is enough time for me to send you to the next world." Gripping the demon banishing blade in hand, Wu Yu's power and energy returned anew. Not dead, Situl Minglang had thought him dead and was about to deal a supplementary move. Who would have known that he would be delivering a killing blow? In that instant, he lifted his sword. The demon banishing blade seemed to have a golden dragon circling it. A voice rang out, "Heaven-defying dragon slayer." Sword and dragon combined perfectly in Wu Yu's hand. With a flash of golden light, that sharp and powerful killing stroke, packed with heaven-defying will, reached Situl Minglang before anyone even realized it. Wu Yu's overwhelming no-watt back had sprung a tinge of doubt in his heart. Calling the lightning needed time. He hurriedly changed his skill to protect himself. Lightning gathered shield. This Dao technique was very fast. Just one chant could call forth a wall of electricity, building a protective shield before him. Wu Yu charged forward with the full power he can muster, swinging demon banishing blade with his one hand. Impossible penetrative power, heaven-defying dragon slayer. It was an equal will, compounded with Wu Yu's horrifying physical power. Those blows shattered the lightning shield at an unbelievable speed. The demon banishing blade cut through, throwing Situl Minglang off. The hand holding lightning rod blade flew askew. Along with it was the lightning rod blade itself. Wu Yu still capitalized by throwing in an additional kick that caught Situl Minglang squarely on the chest. With a crack, his ribs snapped. Situl Minglang flew backward, falling into the crowd. The crowd was naturally stunned and hurriedly made way, causing Situl Minglang to fall to the floor. His fresh blood mixed with mud and he looked like a pathetic picture. Wu Yu thought to himself, that guy really disdains me. He actually dared to block with the lightning shield while holding on to his lightning attack till the last. Wu Yu could not resist letting out a cold laugh. Situl Minglang had a broken arm and had taken a kick. He did not have much fight left in him, and now he could only pick himself up from the ground painfully, his face pale. This scene was hard to take in, and many spectators were shocked. Wow! Within the hushed silence, only King Mang, the little girl, rapped and cried, Wu Yu had won, and Situl Minglang is vanquished. A voice rang in Minglang's ears, Minglang, he has already become a demon in your heart. If you don't kill him, you will never transcend this stage. This is why, go and destroy him without. The master will handle all other matters for you. No one else could hear Lan Huai's words. She was using an advanced skill to project her voice only to Situl Minglang. Within the dead silence, Muji finally understood the real reason why Feng Suya had nurtured Bo Yu. He cleared his throat in purpose, announcing, last battle, the result is clear, the victor is. Suddenly, a voice rang out, wait, Situl Minglang had actually interrupted Muji. The crowd looked again at Situl Minglang. He spoke, I have not lost yet. Situl Minglang tried to stem the huge flow of blood from the right hand, the other hand holding the lightning rod blade aloft. As he said this, his face twisted and his voice quavered with a wail. He had evidently entered some sort of berserk state. Wu Yu could sense his killing intent. After hearing her master's words, all doubts in Situl Minglang's heart vanished into smoke. At that moment, he did something which nobody expected. He raised his sword, facing his heart. With a loud pop, he pierced his own heart with lightning rod blade. In that instant, electricity exploded, and Situl Minglang was quickly engulfed in lightning. His body had taken a humanoid electric form. One could barely make out hands, legs, and a brain. It was the forbidden Dao technique, lightning demon metamorphosis. This technique changed Situl Minglang enormously. His body seemed to have fused with countless electric currents, which made his entire body into attack. That awesome electric power caused everyone to retreat several steps. In everybody's eyes, you could see lightning snakes everywhere. And Situl Minglang now was naturally very terrifying. Su Yanli and Mo Shishu exchanged a look, seeing the anger in each other's eyes. Both took to the air and flew towards Lan Huai. Mo Shishu said, Situl Minglang, you actually dared to use a forbidden Dao technique on the Immortals battle stage. You have broken the rules. According to sect rules, you are disqualified. Back down immediately. Wu Yu had also seen the sect rules, and among the recorded Dao techniques, some were too cruel and too powerful in terms of the casualty effect. They were taboo to disciples, and the only time they could be used was against demons and only as a last resort. Wu Yu knew that both of them would come to protect him, but he felt that it was useless. As expected, Lan Huai waved a hand, and both were sucked back like a vortex, forcibly held to their original spot. Lan Huai stared at them from up high, but did not speak a single word. For some reason, she, Lan Huai, was being unreasonable, but she would insist nonetheless. Su Yanli spoke up in a loud voice, why did Master Feng Suya choose today of all days to be absent? At this time, Situl Minglang had already grasped the chance Lan Huai had given him. Under the protests of the crowd, his ability had elevated by another level, and he had changed into a lightning demon, killing and slaying madly. All the nearby rubble exploded and the soil blackened. Situl Minglang simply struck his sword, and an explosive lightning charge sizzled a long black gash on the earth. Wu Yu narrowly avoided it and escaped unharmed. A few times lightning exploded beside him, and these were blows to him. But in the end, Wu Yu could not find any window for attack, while he himself was about to be destroyed by Situl Minglang. Seeing Wu Yu being completely suppressed, King Mang's face was ashen. She knew that forbidden Dao techniques were prohibited in these battles, and she was so furious. As Wu Yu escaped, Situl Minglang turned into a bolt of lightning and gave chase. Even while he was completely encased in lightning, one could still make out his cold and sinister smile. Wu Yu was stuck in the lightning. A voice rang out, "Die," and an even more destructive attack was unleashed. To Situl Minglang, this was the conclusion of Wu Yu's life. However, he had not noticed Wu Yu's expression, which had been calm. Ever since he had reached the immortal transformation tier, he had a huge ace up his sleeve. Before the lightning could reach him, a golden light covered the sky, shaped like an ape. Wu Yu's transformation began from the eyes. It was immortal ape transformation. His eyes were originally black. Suddenly, they shot out a blinding golden light and changed to completely golden eyes. And then, beginning from his eyes, a golden wave rippled out, wrapping his body. Firstly, with loud cracks, his skeletal structure expanded. In a trice, his chest, legs, waist, and other parts were at least twice as thick. Even his face began to change into that of an ape. What was more obvious was the emergence of golden hair that covered his entire body. Suddenly, a golden light shot up into the sky that reaches far too high. Everyone watched this startling transformation. And then Wu Yu's whole body was hidden inside a ball of golden light that was transforming him into an immortal ape. When light disappeared, Wu Yu was like a real monkey, an upright, ramrod straight ape. The body's golden fur shimmered with light under the sun. Although it was very impressive and intimidating, it did not lack beauty. This was an ape even more handsome than a human. Burly, intimidating, dominating, and bursting with resplendent and beautiful power. Just one look set one's heart beating wildly. A voice rang out, "What is that?" It was not only Situl Minglang that was rooted in fright. All who were watching were astonished. If it were not for the fact that Wu Yu had no demonic aura, they would have imagined that this was Wu Yu's true form. Even the worried Mu Shishu was stunned at this moment. Lan Huai's face also changed very quickly. It was apparent that even was caught off guard by Wu Yu's move. This was definitely not a Dao technique and definitely not a forbidden Dao technique. It was a bloodline transformation. Wu Yu could feel his power skyrocketing from 5,000 warhorses, reaching up to 7,000 warhorses worth of power. The demon banishing blade that Wu Yu wielded struck directly, still imbued with the golden Inferno Dragon Slayer art, while Situl Minglang's lightning strike came cleaving with explosive power. A voice came from Minglang, "Wu Yu, you are really a beast, haha." Situl Minglang's lightning demon metamorphosis was in no better mental condition than Wu Yu. It was even more maniacal than Wu Yu. "Roar," Wu Yu replied with a grunt. The tremendous energy from his chest was articulated in the sound of a large beast. He was worked up and in a frenzy. Both of their weapons clashed. A large of energy was released from the clash that surrounded both of them. The crowd witnessed Wu Yu's demon banishing blade cleave an immortal treasure in two. From the lightning rod blade, thousands of electric currents jumped onto Wu Yu's body, but only a few were able to penetrate it. Situl Minglang's attack only caused light wounds to Wu Yu, but Situl Minglang's immortal treasure was snapped under Wu Yu's mad onslaught. He was thrown back a few meters under a heavy slash from Wu Yu. He could not believe that even after using a forbidden Dao technique, he was no match for Wu Yu. Wu Yu charged forward, swinging his blade. Situl Minglang was cleft into two from head to toe by Wu Yu's sword. The lightning demon split into two, flying to either side of Wu Yu. Situl Minglang's anguished cries only persisted for a few more moments, then the two halves of his corpse vaporized into ash within the lightning, even before they could land on the floor. After killing him, Wu Yu had become even more savage, but now the situation was not serious. He controlled himself, willing his heart to calm. All were silent. A voice rang out, "Damn, have I gone blind?" The fan in Mo Shishu's hand had fallen to the floor and his eyes were about to pop out. There were many who were as doubtful as he was. A voice came, "Wretch, you dared to kill my disciple." The shrill cry of the sect protector raised goosebumps. It was said that Lan Huai was a Jindan immortal. Those like Su Yanli or Mu Shishu were like ants before them. Wu Yu finally shed himself of immortal ape transformation and reverted back to human form. Looking around, all were filled with respect, fear, and adoration. It testified that from this moment on, Wu Yu would progress at fearsome speed. Of course, Wu Yu still had to survive Lan Huai. In the entire Heavenly Sword sect, Only Feng Shui can hold her in check. In an instant, Lan Huai stood up from her throne of 10,000 swords. Wu Yu, you broke the sect's rules and killed my personal disciples on the Immortals battle stage. I sentence you to death. Lan Huai's stern and a cold voice echoed throughout the place. It was decisive and compelling. Wu Yu felt like he was at the gates of hell. The terrible pressure on his body told him that a few more steps forward and he would reach the underworld. I will die here. Wu Yu was very discontented. He had finally defeated Situl Minglag after much difficulty and earned the chance to return to capital Wu for revenge. How could he die here? Lan Huai used a technique that formed several swords in the sky. It looks as majestic as it can be. Wu Yu was pressed down on the floor under the pressure of Lan Huai. She released the swords to kill Wu Yu. Within Wu Yu's body, the blood of the mortal ape bubbled, affecting his will. He clenched his fist tightly and gritted his teeth, unwilling to die. Suddenly, a golden light materialized in the sky, and a huge sword cut through all the attacks of Lan Huai and landed in front of Wu Yu. The pressure that had been crushing Wu Yu vanished. At this moment, Wu Yu discovered that he was still standing on the immortal battle stage, and before him was a black-haired immortal. It was sect leader Feng Shui. He said in a loud voice that echoed all over the place, Wu Yu, from this moment on, you are the fifth disciple of I, Feng Shui. His hands were clasped, and he was facing off against Lan Huai. It looked calm, but only they knew how many attacks had passed. Wu Yu, on your knees. At this time, Mo Shishu and Su Yanli had flown over with quick steps. They reached Wu Yu's side and secretly signaled to him. Only then did Wu Yu respond. Feng Shui had saved his life many times. To repay his grace was Wu Yu's goal. He was acknowledged as his master for life. It was a blessing for him. He quickly reacted, getting on his knees and kowtowing. Loudly, he cried, Disciple Wu Yu greets master. After the arrival of Feng Shui and his acceptance of Wu Yu as a disciple, Lan Huai could not bully Wu Yu at will now. Therefore, she left. Good on you, Wu Yu. You really hid your strength. Today, you brought honor and pride to old Feng. Mo Shishu nudged Wu Yu as he spoke. Wu Yu rose up and thanked Su Yanli and Mo Shishu for their help. Wu Yu was really excited to complete his long-lasting wish of becoming an immortal's disciple and being able to take his revenge. Feng Shui turned around and his pair of eyes trained on Wu Yu. Wu Yu, you have truly made your mark. Feng Shui looked upon him with a conflicted heart, but he did not show this. Instead, adopting a solemn face and walking forward a few paces, he said, Wu Yu, becoming a disciple of I, Feng Shui, not only requires you to have supernatural potential, but also asks you to have an indomitable will. Most importantly, you will uphold virtue and condemn evil and banish demons with a righteous heart. According to the rules, you have not condensed your chai, and so I will not bestow on you your own mountain. However, I can give you an immortal treasure. At this time, Feng Shui gestured. Instantly, from the faraway heavenly palace came ringing sounds. It was the sound of immortal treasure. In an instant, the colorful light covered the sky. It was tens of swords, long and short, with different natures and abilities. Feng Shui spoke. Wu Yu, upon entering the martial cultivator's world, one's first immortal treasure is of importance. Many people only use one treasure for their whole life. Wu Yu was still musing about the art of sword control. Actually, Feng Shui was letting him choose by himself in order to test him. The usually decisive Wu Yu was hesitating at this point. Wu Yu Feng Shui was unsatisfied that he was so long to choose. Choose your immortal treasure, Feng Shui prompted. Feng Shui felt he was conflicted. He asked Wu Yu, what is going on? Wu Yu backed off a few steps, leaving the surrounding treasures, and then looked in confusion toward Feng Shui. Feng Shui was slightly exasperated now, saying, why are you wishy-washy? These 81 immortal treasures have basically covered all affinities. How is it possible that none of them suit you? In the face of Feng Shui's accusing looks, he raised his head and said with conviction, Master, you are right. Out of these 31 immortal treasures, none of them is my first choice. Wu Yu then said that I would like to have a staff as my first treasure. When these last words were uttered, everyone felt like they had just been slapped. Su Yanli chewed her lip, evidently worried for Wu Yu. She knew Feng Shui's temper. Wu Yu had actually asked for a staff. Luckily, Feng Shui was quite calm. Perhaps because he was in a great mood. Feng Shui looked around and said, I don't have that kind of immortal treasure. He felt embarrassed. At this moment, Elder Muji hurriedly leaped up and said, Sect leader, I have a demon subduing staff, which is hidden on my mountain. Its body is gold and made out of red heart gold. It weighs 1500k. Muji, you can take any sort in exchange for the staff from my collection. Elder Muji brought out the demon subduing staff. It was as majestic as it can be. At this moment, Wu Yu's attention was only focused on the demon subduing staff. He was already hyped and could not care about what they were saying. He was really excited holding the demon subduing staff. Now all that is left for him is to go back to capital Wu and get his revenge on Immortal Hao Qian and Empress Yuan Taxi. Thank you, friends, for joining us on this exciting adventure in the world of manhwa in today's manhwa maze. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on every exciting episode.